Hello, hello. How is everyone? Pause that. Hello, welcome, welcome. We are here. Um, Gilbert King. Um, Kiss from a Rose. I wish I knew the Seal song too well. It's funny because when it came out, I actually really hated the song, and then it became like so everybody's favorite song. And then it gets that nostalgic feel to it. One thing, I mean, if you're an old man like me or an old woman like me, you know what I'm talking about. But if you're young, you don't. There's a lot of music you hate when you're young because it's lame, and it's not of the music you listen to. It's the music that some group of people you hate listens to, and then you get old and nostalgia kicks in, and you start liking all of the old music, even the music you hated when you were a teenager. It's very funny. Anyway, happy Father's Day, happy Juneteenth. That's the more important. So, um, uh, for those that don't know, Americans have a new holiday that's celebrated nationally. That's been celebrated for a couple of years now. Biden made it a holiday called Juneteenth, which celebrates. It was originally just when the slaves were freed in Texas, but now it's kind of a national commemoration of freeing slaves in America. Um, so on kissing, let's kissing and resurrection. Um, which I wanted to talk about before kind of everything else. The so I talked about this a little bit last time, but in our story we have a bunch of like dead people walking around animated. And um when I see most fans like talk about whites, whether it be um Beric Dondarrion or Catelyn or the uh, the the White Walkers, thralls, or even um, Sir Robert Strong. They kind of talk about magic as just like this independent thing that can like function without people. That like once a spell is cast on somebody, it can just like animate forever, and you don't have to kind of worry about um, where it came from or anything like that, or some sort of puppet master. Um, that it can just like magic in perpetuity can just like go, and that it's just some sort of like simple spell. And I want to say that um, it's not clear how animation of the dead happens in Ice and Fire, but I will say that it's important to go back and think about what George was doing in A Storm of Swords with all of its parallels, um, because there is a sort of raw emotional connection with each resurrection, and and it lingering in sort of the hearts and minds of somebody else, which makes me wonder if there is a kind of telepathic element of that person. So um obviously A Storm of Swords, the big resurrection we think about is Beric getting resurrected by Thoros, and then Catelyn getting resurrected at the end. Who resurrects Catelyn is a bit of a mystery. Um, and we don't really know Thoros' relationship with Beric too well, but they've been hanging out a bunch, and he gives him this final kiss, this kiss goodbye burial rite thing. And Thoros specifically says it wasn't me that resurrected him. It was R'hllor, and that like fire filled me up and like spread down into him. So there was this sense, this like I don't know, feeling of like power essence or something being shot down into him. It's not like some sort of independent magic just like functioning. Like, you know, he feels like the hot warmth and power like channeling through him and going out through. And you may think that's like a fairly irrelevant kind of point, but we got to also understand that like on a parallel structure, what is going on in the story. Okay. So the most obvious parallel story that's happening to Catelyn, with Catelyn's eventual resurrection, which is like cued for the whole book, is Ygritte and Jon. And it may seem like Ygritte and Jon, like, well, here's the thing: is that like as much as like we joke about like shipping Catelyn and Jon and like the sexual tension between Catelyn and Jon and all of that kind of like ridiculousness, there's kind of a little bit of Catelyn and Jon in A Storm of Swords. So like Ygritte is kind of a young Catelyn. And I know it sounds really silly, but like, you know, on a base level, like she challenges Jon and she makes him angry and she gets his goat, and she's a redhead. She's, you know, and this sort of thing, like it's she's described as kissed by fire in that book. And over and over and over and over, they keep, you know, pushing the point that she's kissed by fire. She's kissed by fire. She's kissed by fire. Like, I think they use kissed by fire. Like, I mean, is it close to like, it's at least 8 times in A Storm of Swords. And of course, you know, like at the end of the book, Catelyn is supposedly kissed by fire. Like this, and she's the redhead, you know? So yeah, I know it's like hard to think about like Catelyn and Jon, but like in a way, Ygritte is a Catelyn, and Jon like is you know, there's all sorts of other weird fucking things in the book, like the fact that like Jon gives Ygritte oral sex and they call it the Lord's kiss, but like Jon's not a lord because he's a bastard, but he's Lord Snow, so he's kind of a lord, and he always wanted to be Lord of Winterfell, but he couldn't be Lord of Winterfell, and that insecurity is all wrapped up in like Robb and Catelyn and weird stuff. I'm not saying that like George R. Martin even like understands like the lines and parallels he draws, but he like does these things, right? So like Jon is like kissing Ygritte the whole book. She's kissed by fire. He's kissing her between the legs. And in the end, the thing that she gets is death. And even though Jon doesn't feel like even though Jon is somewhat certain that he didn't kill Ygritte, he feels like he killed Ygritte. And so like there's a conflation of kiss and death in that book as well. Often in the story, they'll talk about swords kissing you. This is over and over again. You hear about the kisses of a sword. In fact, the Dornishman's wife, which is also introduced in that book, talks about, I knew, you know, the Dornishman. Well, I'll bring up the Dornishman's wife like lyrics. It's long. I'm just gonna read the important lyrics. But the Dornishman's wife was fair as the sun, and her kisses were warmer than spring. But the Dornishman's, you know, kissed by fire, kisses warmer than spring. But the Dornishman's blade was made of black steel, and its kiss was a terrible thing. And so, what is the thing that happens to Catelyn at the end? Is she gets this kiss that's like a hot fire kiss, but it's also like a terrible thing. Like the Dornishman's wife like happens to Catelyn, and this is all like in Jon's story, you know. So all of that's going on. Like Jon has a whole relationship with essentially little Catelyn, like a Catelyn stand-in up in the north. Now, meanwhile, it doesn't even end there. Meanwhile, you've got Dany, and Dany is at the beginning of A Storm of Swords. She is kissed by Jorah, and she thinks For the funny thing that she says, no proper knight would ever kiss a queen without her leave. And this gets into like whether or not Catelyn is like literally Rob's heir, which I do think, but even if you don't think that, like, you know, metaphorically, Catelyn is a queen, you know, in many senses. You know, she's um Catelyn receives a kiss without her leave. And this is, of course, like a connection to Sleeping Beauty and things like this, like a prince coming in and kissing Sleeping Beauty without her leave, with Snow White without her leave and her like waking up, you know. Like, and in these books, I think in the original stories, like maybe at least the Grimm's version, which are usually darker, not the originals, but I think the girls are actually dead, you know. So like you're awakening these girls from death like with kisses, but people today look at those stories and they're like, wait a minute, this is kind of like problematic, right? These guys are going in and kissing these unconscious women. Yeah, George is thinking about all of that. So Catelyn receives this kiss that she didn't want, you know. She's dead, she can't, and she's receiving this kiss. And of course, like this all relates to also like the stealing of women. Like anyway, the kiss that Daenerys does not want, she receives from Jorah. And the entire book, she talks about the kiss awakening something within her. And the whole story, she's like she starts acting pretty weird, you know. She starts like, because of the kiss, it specifically says like because of the kiss, she starts like fantasizing sexually. Not about Jorah though. She starts fantasizing sexually about this like shade character. Um, and then she starts getting horny and she has sex with Eerie. And she has like, you know, something awakens in her and she all of a sudden wants to kill the slavers in Slavers Bay and becomes this like, you know, queen of Slavers Bay. Um, so in a sense, like the kiss is associated with awakening something, you know. Um, and there's that kind of aspect to it. And then you kind of jump over to the Arya story. And like the Arya story is of course more connected because you end up with Beric. But like Tom of Sevens is like singing songs about, you know, men like stealing women with the kiss of a sword. I think that's Off to Gulltown or something. What's the Gulltown song that Tom of Sevens sings? It's something to do. I'm sorry, I've got these things I have to like remember. It's Off to Gulltown. It's off to Gulltown to see a fair maid. Hi ho, hi ho. I'll steal a sweet kiss with the point of my blade. In that like line, I'll steal sweet kiss with the point of my blade. It's ambiguous whether or not he's talking about the kiss of his blade or the kiss of his lips, because we're getting this association of like death, the kiss of a sword, death, and the kiss of a person, life, right? So, you know, there's through the entire story, like whether it's Arya, whether it's Jon, whether it's, you know, and at the same time, I think Sansa's thinking about the weird kiss with Gregor. And then, of course, like, you know, as things go on, we get Aeron awakening people on the beach and stuff like this. But the point of all of this is that, like, the kiss, like, this is really essential when we're talking about whites, right? That the magic of whites is never independent of like real human passion and like relationships, which is like what a kiss kind of represents, right? Like, and so you can't just like divorce that and be like, well, it's a spell. No, like it's linked emotionally. Like whether it be like an improper kiss, like Jorah to Dany, it doesn't matter, or the fake kiss that Sansa didn't have with the Hound, or Ygritte to Jon. The point is that the kiss represents like real human emotion and passion, okay, that's existing in this world. and it's not just some spell that's like going independently, like you know, in a perpetual motion thing. It's like it's always linked with a real human relationship, and there's many more. I think you can go in and look at like Cersei kisses, and Cersei kisses always being associated with death and stuff like this, and Aaron, like his, you know, his kiss of life and his ability to do this being so highly linked to his near death experience and like his trauma with Euron and stuff like this. But the point of all of this as well is that, like, you know, when it's linked with human emotions, it's linked with real people, and so it's just in fact, I think it's why when Catelyn is actually resurrected, we're unsure if it's actually Beric giving it to her versus Arya. Arya is at, like, Arya hears about the kiss of life from Thoros and wonders if she can bring back her father with it. And they tell her, you know, and he describes the whole thing, and she's like, she eventually decides that like she can't because he doesn't have a head. But then at the end, when Catelyn is actually like found, she's found by Nymeria. And Nymeria, oh yeah, I forgot to mention that, like, when Nymeria is sitting there, the three people that come to find Catelyn are Thoros, who gives the kiss, Beric, who gives a kiss, and um Lemoncloak, the Knight of Skulls and Kisses, right? Death and kisses and everything like this, right? So, you know, she actually sits there and is like, wake up as a wolf. And then Catelyn wakes up. Yes, she gets her kiss after, but is it Arya bringing her back, or is it Beric? Because Beric doesn't even have a relationship with Cat. Why would he care? Why is his emotion, like, it doesn't really like thematically make sense that Beric would have the ability to come, like, bring Cat back. He doesn't have a relationship with Cat. There's no passion there between them. At least Thoros and Beric knew each other, but like, who the hell is Catelyn to Beric? Like, it doesn't make any sense that like his passion would bring her back. It makes much more thematic sense that Arya's passion brings her back, and all of these things. But it, you know, the actual mechanics aren't kind of detailed. You know, but I'm gonna say, like, telepathy and emotion, like, are very important here, and that it's not just like random magic. And so when we start talking going forward, will Jon get kissed back to life by Melisandre? This is what everybody kind of thinks, right? Like, but no, like, there's no passion. Like, what's the passion? Like, whose passion and whose drive is bringing Jon back? Like, it has to be somebody else's, you know? And, you know, maybe it's actually Bran. Maybe it's actually Sam. You know, who has passion about Jon? Melisandre doesn't give a fuck. like at least at this point in our story. Um, so, you know, you need an actual real passion. So if you're thinking about Jon coming back, like, you know, you have to think about, like, who really has the mechanics, who really has the emotional connection to bring Jon back. Because with Catelyn, the real emotional connection is Arya's. Arya's emotion brings her back, not Beric's. Like, you know, so like, who can bring Jon back? Like, you know, Bran. I mean, you know, but you have to think, like, is Bran like watching the situation? Is he the one really bringing him back? If Jon comes back, but yeah, didn't Beric pass his life to Cat? No, this is all like very ambiguous. You know, all very ambiguous. It's probably Arya. Can Makoro or any R'hllor priest kiss somebody back to life, or do you think it's something any priest can do? Thoros says that this isn't something that happens. Like, Thoros, like, they kiss people to death. They kiss people to send them off. Like, the Beric coming back to life is like something that shocks Thoros. He doesn't think it's a normal thing. So, like, Melisandre wouldn't be kissing Jon to bring him back. She'd be kissing Jon to give him a funeral rite to send him off to death. And then it would be an accident again, if it were going to happen through Melisandre. But it's Like that's the thing. So she, it wouldn't see in the show. She had like she was very like, it was very intentional. Like, I'm gonna try this whole like bring people to back to life thing, and it's like, well, Thoros knew nothing about that. So, um, thoughts on Arya giving Stoneheart mercy? I don't think that. I don't think that it's Arya's place. Like, I don't think Arya would be there yet. I think Stoneheart represents too much to the Brienne and Jaime story, that they need to be the ones that kill Catelyn. Um, like Catelyn representing like the problems with like just like phoning in your moral code to somebody else, which is like Jaime's whole story. I mean, you've all watched my Brienne and the Squishers like series, but like Jaime stabbing Aerys is the same thing as Brienne with Lady Stoneheart, right? They both swore themselves to someone, thinking that like swearing your allegiance to someone is something honorable and and good, and that knighthood is something good because you can just I swear to follow you. I am honorable. But what happens if that person is a piece of shit? And like Arya, or like Aerys is a piece of shit. And so Jaime has to kill that moral code, in order and then establish his own moral code afterwards. Brienne has to do the same thing. Like Brienne like spends the whole story like trashing Jaime for what he did, like Kingslayer. Well, turns out Kingslayer is the fucking best thing Jaime ever did. He saved hundreds of thousands of, he saved 500,000 lives, right? Like it was the greatest thing he ever did. And so it's the same like with Brienne. She gave her code to her honor and everything to Catelyn, and then now Catelyn is threatening to like kill little boys and innocent boys and Hyle Hunt and Jaime and stuff. Like, nah, she needs to die. Like that, Brienne needs to realize the same thing that Jaime did, that you can't rely on other people's moral codes. You can't just be like, I phone it in, I'm gonna follow you. That's not morality, And so like it's too important that Brienne kill Lady Stoneheart, then, or at minimum, Jaime kill Lady Stoneheart. But like, Arya has nothing to do with her. Like, she has nothing to do with her. She brings her back to life, but like thematically and morally, like she doesn't have anything to do with her. And like, Brienne's story is all, and the Brotherhood without banners are all about morality. Like, it's all about morality. Like, they this is the whole thing. They like the Brotherhood without banners, which is like the arching thing here, is like they don't have a king anymore. So what do they represent? Like once you take away the king from like knights who phone in their morality to somebody else, like what are they left with? Well, they're left with nothing, which is why like the Hound laughs at them. Like, what do you guys are idiots. Like what do you represent nothing, like, so that's the idea, is like what moral code do you represent once the Wizard of Oz is like revealed to be nothing. Could you do Benjen chapters? Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about like what, I don't think from Benjen's point of view, but I've been thinking a lot about, because we've been doing with Bran, how to deal with like all of the last threads of the North, and bringing them in, because we've got a few last threads. Relatively, I mean, it seems like a lot to like, how do you bring these stories together? But at least it's like minimal. Like you've got, maybe like you've got the others, and you've got Craster's Keep, and you've got Stone Snake, and you have Hardhome, and you have Bran in his cave, and you've got, the Weeper and stuff. But like, you've got to bring these last and Benjen, and you've got to bring these last things like together. But that's that's doable. That's at least there's like only like 8 like storylines that you have to deal with like north of the wall, rather than like the hundreds that you have in other locations like Winterfell or something. But he'll definitely be dealt with. I don't think it's going to be from his perspective though, unless it's some sort of epilogue. But it'd be interesting. Um, let's see. Oh, if Beric didn't bring Cat, then why did he die? Because Thoros let him die. Um, Thoros just, Thoros was following Beric, and this again like gets back to the morality of like Jaime and Brienne. Like Thoros runs into the fundamental problem of anybody else. Like he is this like drunk who has no like moral code, so he just decides to follow Beric, and so like he creates this like thing to follow. And once he doesn't have that thing to follow anymore, he doesn't need Beric. He's got Lady Stoneheart. But that's the thing, is that's the idea, is that like Beric is somehow like telepathically or whatever like animating Beric. And once Lady Stoneheart's around, he doesn't need Beric anymore. So Beric just like ceases to be. What's the ETA on a Tyrion chapter? Tyrion 1 is pretty much done. I'd like to have one more editor like look at it. Tyrion 1 is looking really strong. The but order wise, Victorian 1 comes before it, and Victorian 1 is also nearly done. It's also pretty strong, but I'd like to have an editor look at it. So like Tyrion 1, in fact, Victorian 1 and Tyrion 1 are closer to done than Bran by far. They're both looking really good. So, and then once those are out, I can just I can record the release sample chapters of like of Tyrion 2 and Barristan 1 and stuff like that, and then maybe move on to something like doing Barristan 2 and Quentin. Yeah, the Tyrion 1 and Victorian are kind of like, this is Victorian's second half. They were a little different from other chapters because we actually had an outline of like what George wrote, and so I didn't do like a call for submissions, but I got a submission anyway from a writer, and we kind of like worked with it from there. It's Tyrion 1 especially is perhaps the most pointless, useless chapter. So he tried to make it at least fun and interesting, but it doesn't need to be in the book. Like it can totally be cut. Like there's like just the story could have just started with Tyrion 2, but we have Tyrion 1, so it's not the longest thing. It's like 3,500 words. We tried to make it a little fun, but it's nearly done. I don't know if I just like want to get Bran out or what. We'll also see like about like editors' time and stuff like that, and what they are available to do. But very, very, very close on Tyrion 1 and Victorian 1. So they may be out, in the next couple weeks. Care to gush about Angel a bit. Early episodes are rough, and season 4, but season 5 is amazing. Fred's "You Are My Sunshine" scene, man. I'm a big fan of Angel. I like seasons. I understand that like most fans praise season 2 the most. right? Season 2 is the Darla comes back season. um, and they probably like, I'd say most fans like put season 3 or 4 at the bottom. I like season 4 a lot just because of the like the breakneck speed and the constant. I don't think like I. It's just the like every episode being a cliffhanger. Is was insane. Like I just couldn't wait until the next week. I was like, what? And this like descent, like every episode, like you're like, how can things get worse? Oh, they got worse. How can they get worse? They got worse. But I like all the seasons. I think season 1 has its charm. You kind of need it. You need Doyle. You need the introduction of Wesley, because if you don't have Wesley season 1, how can you have Wesley season 4 as the juxtaposition? Like certain things are just needed. Even though I think most people praise season 2 as the best, and I will say season 2 is most memorable. I mean, people really love like the return of Drusilla and Darla, and like them going to the demon world and stuff like that. But I don't know. I like them all. Season 3 is what Holt season, which is a little more forgettable. The only thing I think like Angel is a Angel's a really perfect show. It's really, really good. The only thing I'd say about the entire show that like that they needed more time with is uh, Cordelia's powers. She needed to have her powers longer before she went up into the realm. She needed to do something with her powers before she rose. But I'm gushing about something that like most people have never seen. But there's this to essentially like ruin the show for people. And Joss Whedon in his heyday was really fucking good at what he did, and he set this situation when the show was released. Angel is this Buffy spinoff, and Angel was kind of a flat character in Buffy. And the reason he was flat is that he only represented a joke, a single kind of like thematic device, and that is when girls have sex with in high school and college, like when girls first start having sex. A lot of times there's guys that just want to bang women and then like move on, right? So there's this joke like once the guy has sex with her, he becomes a monster, right? And this is the whole thing. Like, oh, we won't, he was all sweet and we went on these dates. He was the greatest guy in the world. And then we had sex and then he just ignores me and like is a monster. And this was like the joke, right? So Angel is this like perfect guy. He's this vampire. And then he has sex with Buffy and he loses his soul and he becomes a monster. And this is the whole joke. Like, oh, like she finally has sex and her boyfriend becomes a monster. Like this is the whole fundamental thing. And so like Angel didn't really have a function outside of playing that role, being the perfect guy and then being a monster who loses his soul after he has sex with Buffy. And so you've got this like spin-off show about him where he's like completely devoted to Buffy. And then the other characters you add to the show is you add Cordelia, who is this annoying cheerleader girl. And I remember when it came out, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be horrible. Like two of my least favorite characters from Buffy are like in a show together. And instead it was fucking great. It's like Andor, like not what you didn't ask for being great. I thought Angel was going to be horrible, and it was much better than Buffy in my opinion. And so you kind of established like over the course of the show, like Cordelia going from this spoiled cheerleader character and like evolving and changing and becoming this incredible character at the end. And Angel himself, like going from this flat, brooding, I think about Buffy all day long, to growing and becoming something new. And even those two characters who are nothing alike, who should never be hanging out, you begin to buy their love story. And so slowly, over the course of like 3 seasons, this love story starts building. And you're shipping them. You're just like by season 3, you're shipping them, and you're like, oh my god, they're finally gonna get together, and you think like, oh my god, they're in love, and they both need to like find each other to express their love to each other, and they're heading towards each other, and they're both intercepted, and one is intercepted by this demon claiming he works for the powers that be, who asks Cordelia to ascend to a higher realm. And she's like, but I've got to go see Angel. And he's like, but you've got like higher work to do. And so she like accepts and she abides, and like she decides to ascend to a higher realm. Meanwhile, Angel's trying to find Cordelia, and he gets captured by his son, who's convinced that like he's the most evil guy in the world, who killed his father, who killed his adopted father. And so Angel, of course, he's a vampire, he's immortal. So he's like, what are you going to do? Like, Connor, you're going to kill me? And he's like, you don't get to die. You get to live forever. So he puts Angel in a coffin, bolts the coffin shut, and dumps him in the ocean to live at the bottom of the sea, eternal, alive, like the most brutal thing. So you have this like final scene at the end of season 3 of like Cordelia ascending to heaven and Angel descending to hell at the same time in this like beautiful scene that you've built up over 3 seasons of like, oh my gosh, like they're gonna ship, they're gonna get together, and then like that you're left at the end of season 3 with that punch, like, oh my god, like, and then and I'd like to say that it gets better from there, but it gets more painful from there. It gets more painful. Anyway, I've lost everybody gushing about Angel. Fucking Joss Whedon, man. He's fucking brilliant. Brilliant in the day. And then, meanwhile, he was like harassing everybody on set and like, sexual harassing everyone. What do you think happened to Benjen? And what will George do with his character? He's been on the sidelines for far too long. I don't think George knows what he wants to do with Benjen, but I don't know. I've got a few ideas. I don't want to give away like too much, but I do think that like Benjen's story must relate. Like, I don't think it's gonna be involved with children or White Walkers or all of like the higher mysteries, but like I think the step up close to that, like what was going on with Craster's Keep and what was the Night's Watch doing, the Dread Fort and stuff like that, getting into the history of the Night's Watch or something like that, and kind of having that discovery might be something he's more related to. And then once you find out about one, you might find out about the other. But I don't see him being like a magical servant of the Children of the Forest or something like that, like in the show. But I feel like he can be unlocking some kind of next step up kind of stuff. Like, I don't know. I mean, I imagine like Craster's Keep, but the question is like, where has he been? I don't know. Like, how has he been surviving for all this long? I don't know. He probably has his own crew of wildlings or something. I don't know. If Feast and Dance were originally one book, fair to view Winds of Winter as second book of new trilogy. Avatar 2, Loki Cameron allegory for Taiwan. Whale brain oil equals semiconductors. Whoa. No, so if Feast and Dance were originally one book, no. It's more like if you're going to really think about like George's plan and how he really broke things down. Like, he wanted War of the Five Kings Act 1, Dany's Invasion Act 2, and the Invasion of the Others, Act 3. And that's how he sort of saw it. So, Feast and Dance, yeah, they were originally one book, but he wanted to end that book with like all of the battles of ice and fire being completed and Dany returning to Westeros at least at that point. So in many ways, like the first half of The Winds of Winter is still the same book as A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons. Like that's all one story that George was never able to finish. And it's a frustrating thing to think about, that like he didn't even he didn't finish A Dance with Dragons. Like he was having trouble. A Dance with Dragons he was having trouble with, right? Meaning like A Feast for Crows used to be A Dance with Dragons. He was having trouble. And so he was like, fine, we'll release all of these stories as part 1 of A Dance with Dragons, which is A Feast for Crows. And it's like, okay, finish it up. Okay, we'll get the second half. And he couldn't even get the second half. Like he couldn't get it. Like, you know, we're on a cliffhanger at the end of with nothing concluded at the end of A Dance with Dragons, where he clearly wanted all of these battles to happen and have some sort of like resolution at the end. And he's like anywhere from that, you know, nowhere close to that. And it's funny because like going through doing the fan fiction, because we're not far from, not that we've written a quarter of the book, but like we're not far from a quarter done, as in like a little over 100,000 words. And we're, you know, a lot of people are like, oh my God, your chapters go way too fast, like plot wise. And I'm like, they have to at this point. And the fact that like, we've all like already the chapters that are there represent like close to a quarter of the book. And we haven't even like gotten to Cersei, the battle in the North, kind of all this stuff. And you know, so at minimum, probably more realistically, like the first third to the first half of The Winds of Winter is just concluding all of the storylines from A Dance with Dragons, A Feast for Crows. That, you know, this is how like out of control George got with the book, like, you know, and his inability to finish. Like it's just and like why he's having trouble now. Like, you know, it just keeps growing and growing and growing, and he doesn't know how to bring it back in. I haven't seen Avatar 2, so I don't know about the allegory for Taiwan, but whale brain equals semiconductor. I'm not sure about any of that, but we'll see. I'm not sure if it's about you know, what goes on with that. Don't they go to some sea people and there's some sort of like reunification aspect? But I mean, I don't see China and Taiwan ever reunifying. How many of the fanfics are on YouTube? All of them. Just go to my playlist called The Winds of Winter, sort of. Did you ever read Fever Dream, and was it ever any good? Yeah, I've read Fever Dream maybe three times. I've read it. It's a very good book. I highly recommend it. I think it's when it comes to unlocking secrets of Ice and Fire, it's pretty low on the like you're gonna find material that's gonna tell you more about Ice and Fire. It's a very good story in its own right. And tells you a lot about how George R. Martin structures stories and feelings and things like that. It's a fun little tale, and I think if you read it, what you'll find is a lot of elements like thematically and like description wise of things like New Orleans and stuff you find reused in Ice and Fire, or like the feelings. It's hard to read and not think about like Ramsay Bolton, Ramsay Snow, and like Quentin in Volantis and stuff like that, because I do feel like just a lot of that is just he went back to it and like mined it for ideas to get over writer's block or something. I think it's worth a read. It's not going to tell you much about Ice and Fire, unlike, say, a lot of his Thousand Worlds stuff, a lot of his or Dying of the Light or something, you know. But you know, it's a fun little tale. It's a um, you know, vampires and wolves, maybe a little bit of that in there. Um, but I guess it tells you, you know, about how he's like more science oriented than fantasy oriented and things like that. Um, is there a possibility of a future Bran having stolen Bloodraven's body back in the day, and Bloodraven we see in the trees is actually Bran training himself? Hmm. I think that I don't know if Bran is interfering with events before his own birth. And I'm just saying, like, logically speaking, if he did that, wouldn't he prevent his own birth? Like, if he starts messing with events like that, how can he exist? Um, you know, and I think George would think about that just because he's so sci-fi oriented. I know a lot of people think about, you know, is Bran the Builder? Did Bran cause Ares to burn down King's Landing and get these visions and things like that? You know, is time traveling Bran responsible for it all? Um, and I don't I don't know, like, because you know that's all presuming like time loops, because then you can just do everything because it's all a time loop. But I don't know if George likes time loops. He's only written one story that's on the bubble of time loop, and that's the his Elvis story that he wrote for the Twilight Zone, where guy goes back in time and kills Elvis and then becomes Elvis, and then feels the need to replicate Elvis's life because he feels bad for like Elvis, and so he like purposely tries to create the time loop in order to like save the world. Um, so you know, unless that's the case, but that he wants to recreate the time loop, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like that could be the case. But I don't think that. I think it's you know, I think it's I think it's we should be wondering who is controlling whom with Bloodraven. Like, how much is it the children? Where do the children end, and where does Bloodraven begin, and things like that. But I don't think physically speaking, or I don't think Bloodraven is Bran. Um, you know, I think Bran might think something's Bloodraven, like he might think the three-eyed crow is Bloodraven when it's time traveling Bran, but I don't think that Bran himself led Bloodraven to the cave. Um, uh, Fever Dream is dope though. I've been on a Stephen King bender for the last 2 years, 17 novels deep. I want more horror. Uh, there's creepy aspects to Fever Dream, just like, and there's, you know, when George R. R. Martin does horror, it doesn't give you the same vibe as Stephen King. So I mean, he definitely tries horror, like, you know, the pear-shaped man and skin trade and things like that. He definitely tries horror, but it's not as scary. He never gets to the point where it's as scary as Stephen King. Like, he never gets to that point of like doom um with it. I You know, there's definitely stuff that's creepy and makes your like skin crawl a bit, but Stephen King has the ability of like recreating, like, oh my gosh, this is absolute doom, like horrific doom. I never felt that with George. I mean, maybe other people disagree with me, but I don't know if, like, even though George wrote a lot of horror, I don't necessarily think he's like it 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 hits in the same way as Stephen King. I mean, you know, you could look at like Meathouse Man as a horror story, but it's more like at the end, like this sad, pathetic, like, like thing that tells you about like human nature, versus like when you read Stephen King and you're like, oh my gosh, these monsters need to stop. The protagonists are, oh my god, I need the protagonists to like defeat this thing, you know. Um, you know, there's just like this like Even Stephen King's like bad stories. Like I read The Regulators, which isn't exactly a great story, but still there was just something so scary about these vans going around with people like just killing people, and like to be scared of people in vans. Like Stephen King just has this ability to do that. Or like Pennywise the clown. Like you're scared of this like clown, um, and the horror it causes, like the dread of him coming. George's horror is different. It's more creepy. Um, God, I had to Gladys's theory. Lesthoros was a gay necrophile. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess. In Bravo, Sam said he couldn't save John because he couldn't communicate. Yeah. In the Bravo, Sam said he couldn't communicate. He couldn't save John because he couldn't communicate through the glass candle, but he was able to send a more complex set of instructions to Han rescue the Wildling girl. Yeah, the idea is that he gets better at it. That he gets better at time. When with the stuff with when he's looking through Clytus's eyes, like he can't yet like instruct him to do things. He hasn't gotten to that level of the of practice with it. So that's the whole thing. It's just one was, he was just learning to drive versus like he's a more experienced driver. Is the idea. That's all it is to it. What does George need to do to bring it back in? I think I think he needs to stop world building and like fundamentally say, like, when I start a chapter, what's the purpose of this chapter? Let's get it done. This is my word count. Where do I need to go? Move, and not be working on like perfection and not just, I think with like A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons, he was in some way trying to get to a word count. Like people were like, "Oh, you need to get this book in." And he's like, "Oh crap!" And he sits down. And he's like, "What can I write about today?" If you read Fire and Blood, it's kind of similar, like you're like, what is the stuff that he wrote for Fire and Blood? Because keep in mind, Princess and the Queen and Rogue Prince was already written, and Sons of the Dragon was already written. So you've got this Jaehaerys story, and if you read the Jaehaerys story, it's like Alyssa Farman did the Corlys Velaryon went off to, and you're like, what does that have to do with anything? What does this even have to do with Jaehaerys? Jaehaerys' seventh daughter, Gael, like what? Like, you're not telling me about Targaryen history. You're telling me about like some random thing that happened to some character. There's no direction to any of it. Like, he just needs to outline and he doesn't like to outline. He needs to outline. He needs to have a situation where he's like, this is where we need to get to. And these are the events that need to happen. Let's, in an economical way, like write that story and get it done. And that's just not how he writes, but also, he just needs to sit down and actually write and not have the other distractions. But I don't know. I mean, a lot of people like think, oh, can George like pull it back together? I don't know. I mean, it's been a problem for this has been a problem going for nearly 20 years. Like, I mean, put yourself in George's shoes. Now let's go back to the year 2000. You say you just finished A Storm of Swords. Would any of you have written, and I love A Feast for Crows, and I love how ambitious it is, but like I think it's amazing that you can release a book with a bunch of characters that no one's ever heard of at book 4 that no one cares about, and like send the story into a completely different direction. I think that's like a big punch, like, oh man, ambitious. But would any of you, like, had you written those first 3 stories, and you're sitting there, with Danny ruling Marine and Jon at the wall and Tyrion like heading to Slaver's Bay. And, um, would you have begun a story about the freaking Ironborn and a Kingsmoot that went on for chapters and chapters, and then focus on Tywin's funeral for for freaking 4 chapters, and like going down to Dorne? Like, would any of you done that? Like, would any of you have been like, you know what? I need to finish this story. I need to finish these books. These are huge books. I've got like 1,000 characters. I know fucking Dornish and Ironborn and Tywin's funeral. And and then when you finally get to like the next book, you're like Quentin and Aegon. Like, who would have done that? Who would have done that? I mean, it's crazy and amazing, but what kind of person would have done that? Like, none of us would have done that. It's like shocking. It is. And at first you're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see where this is going. And then you realize like, oh crap, like he doesn't know what he doesn't know what he's doing. Like George doesn't know where it's going. He doesn't know what he's doing. If Bran prevented his own birth, wouldn't he stop most conflicts like Donnie Darko? I'm trying to think like now I'm like butterfly effect. Like if Bran just kills himself and is never born, I guess no one sees Cersei and Jaime have sex. They all head south, and I mean, it depends. Did he cause the direwolves? Like, if he caused the direwolves, then everybody heads south. Um, I don't know. Would Littlefinger still be trying to like? Well, are the others still doing stuff? Is Littlefinger still doing stuff? Is Varys still doing stuff? I imagine. So there's still some sort of problem coming, But it all depends if like is Bran the one that like unlocks the dragons and like hatches the dragons? Like, did Bran do that? Is he the cause or the solution to all the problems? Because in Butterfly Effect, right, you just discover that the main character is the cause of all the problems. Do you know of any place that is John Cheese's old articles? I remember reading Cracked scrubbed their website of his work, but his writing on addiction really helped a lot of people. I have no idea. It's funny because I not too long ago I did like Google all the Cracked kind of writers to see where they were. And John Cheese is generally like pretty scrubbed from the internet anyway. Like John Cheese got, I think he got he was one of the early writers for Cracked, and then he got into a scandal. Was it? I'm trying to think what his thing like was it? Oh yeah, he was accusing. So some of he had a long pattern of sexual harassment, like, and keep in mind it's like online, like and so eventually like they decided he was a problem, and they cut ties with him and then deleted all of his articles. His articles, I remember his art. I mean, skill wise, he was probably the second or third best writer on the site. Because I would say like Jason Pargin, David Wong, he was clearly the best. Like he was a really fucking good writer. I think Sean Baby it was like fucking fantastic writer, and John Cheese was really good writer. And then they just kind of like deleted his stuff. Um, you can't even Wayback Machine it apparently. But and he's kind of disappeared from the internet for his like sexual harassment kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if where you can find kind of find it, but yeah, it's funny. You know, most of the people with Cracked, like you remember Cracked's heyday. Cracked was running this website where you had like all these incredible writers that were like overworked, working for nothing, accepting submissions and paying people $100, you know, and that was their like maybe it was kind of like the MTV VJ situation where like you get exposure, like we're gonna pay you nothing to appear on MTV, and so all these like people in LA are like, fine, I'll become an an MTV VJ, and they get paid nothing, and then their careers end up going really nowhere. Same with like Cracked, like these starving writers were like, fine, I'll write an article for Cracked, which a lot of them took an insane amount of research, having written a few of them, insane amount of research, got paid nothing, $100, you know, people doing it for fun, and so you know, you had these incredible writers that were overworked, and you know, some of the editors went on to do things like Dan O'Brien now works for Last Week Tonight, and Soren Bowie for American Dad, and stuff like that, and you know, some of these struggling writers have like found you know, a life after it, but man, they were doing a lot of work, pulling in, you know, pulling in no money, paying people no money for a number of years. And of course, when like they got bought and the company is like, okay, we need to make profits, they're completely incapable of making profits. Like, and so it's why like that's the one thing that Cracked never did. so so yeah. Um on Game of Thrones, Bloodraven was played by two different people in the tree and traveling with Bran. Why? I didn't see a Raven birthmark. Did you? I think they just, I forget who are the two actors. Because the second guy, I don't know why. I think they just thought that the first guy looked weird, and they didn't they didn't like the makeup or whatever, and so they're just like, the second one is Max von Sydow, and he did a fine job. He really like, and the first one, what was his makeup made him look like one of those old um Chinese guys from like a kung fu movie, you know? Right? But I think they were just like, yeah, the makeup for this is too much. We can get this other actor come in and you know, emote better or something. Um, but yeah, they never called him Bloodraven. They never gave that backstory to him. They never gave him like the one eye or anything like that. Um, no albinoism, no wines, no birthmarks, no one eye. They just made it a lot easier at that point. Like why mess with the makeup? But um, I mean, they did change a lot. You know, like Coldhands was Benjen in the show, which we know that they're not. Um, Andor episode 10 or House of the Dragon episode 8. Thoughts on Tony Gilroy? Which one was Andor episode 10? One Way Out. Oh my god, that was a good one. That's a good one. Um, I'm gonna say Andor episode 10. Andor episode 10 is the prison break, and fuck, the prison break episode, which is, I mean, Andy Serkis is so fucking good in that. And I admit, um, um, the um, Will Johnson as Vaymond is incredible too. But I think Andy Serkis takes the cake on that one, and head to head. But man, those are both two really good episodes. I mean, it's probably the best episode of Andor in that season. But man, there's the Andor was freaking that was good. That was good stuff. But Tony Gilroy. Let me see here. Let me make sure I know all the things that Tony Gilroy has done. Oh, he did the the Born Identity trilogy. Um, what's funny is I would say that like I never thought about him before Andor. Like to me, the Born Identity, and I've seen all the Born movies for some reason, and they're so forgettable. And to me, like I don't like the Born movies at all. I can't remember their plots. I can't remember their individual scenes. Like there's no point where I'm just like, oh, remember that scene from the Born Identity? No. I just remember shaky cam, gray Europe, and like people fighting. And like that's all I remember. And like the CIA is doing something. They're trying to catch Jason Bourne. And you had a whole bunch of movies of that. And I thought they were just empty. So Rogue One I thought was an okay movie. But man, he really came into his own with Andor. So like I would say like after that, I think very highly of him. But before that, I never really thought anything of him. Like he was just like this utility guy. What's funny is that like so many people mimicked his Born Identity style, and I never understood why. Like there was nothing. I've seen a few of his movies. Proof of Life I've seen. Forgettable movie. I haven't seen Nightcrawler. Armageddon, just not. So I mean, now I think a lot of him, but before I never really thought too much of him. That's the thing is you do something that's really great, and then all of a sudden you kind of go, oh. Hello. How goes it?
I'm actually only going to be here for like two minutes. I'm going to be on the long BRB. But okay. Real quick, first off, I have to embarrass you just a little bit. I have to let the audience know it was Preston's birthday a couple of days ago. So happy late birthday to Preston. Happy late birthday.
Yes. Yes.
You know what? You don't like to be reminded of your birthday?
Who does? You
get any gifts? Do anything nice?
Yeah, my wife took me out to a really nice omakase lunch. And it's the first time I've really had like a proper omakase, where like omakase is where like you go and you get a set sushi thing where like the chef like makes you special rolls in front of you. So that was very nice. She made me a cake, and she took me out to a very nice omakase like lunch. It was nice. It was very nice.
Very nice. By the way, to the audience, it was a couple of days ago, but it's also Preston. It was also Preston's unofficial second birthday today, since it's Father's Day, at least in the States. So
that's true. Got it.
So only a couple years until you get like a tie or an ashtray that you'll never use.
Well, my wife tried to get my son to make a card and he's like trying, he's 3.5, and he's not very
Uh-huh.
good with drawing yet, and so he like
Hmm.
tries to write his name, and it's just like it's completely illegible except for like the C and the L in his name, and it's so funny because I'm like, what's this? He's like, that's an S. He's like, some people draw S's like that. And I'm like, oh really? Yeah. So
Well,
it was all right. It was all right. It was what can you do? What can you do?
I messaged him. I'm like, "Happy birthday!" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah. Come on. You had a good time. You had a good time. We're getting older. It's nice. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
It's
It's
fine.
fine."
It's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Uh thoughts on Robert Kennedy Jr. Not good ones. He's like an anti-vax kind of nut. Um wasn't Cody Johnson on Cracked? Cody Johnson was on Cracked. He's a very funny, very talented kind of guy. He has his own like YouTube channel now where he took a few people from Cracked on as staff writers who put it together, like Katie, what's her face? I want to say Katie Stoll, and a few other people write for him, but Cody Johnson's very funny. And if you want to see Cody Johnston has a couple videos of him doing stuff based on my articles. There is a Cody Johnston on the Flintstones Jetsons. Cody Johnston Flintstones Jetsons thing is mine. The horrifying truth about life in the Jetsons universe. That's based on my article. I wrote an article for Cracked a long time ago that said that essentially like that there was a dinosaur uprising, and they tried to they essentially it was the Matrix, but they like because there's a Jetsons Flintstones crossover movie where that they happen in the same universe, and so therefore if the dinosaurs are gone, and the dinosaurs were essentially like servants of humanity, and they're now replaced by robots, like just stands the reason that they like there was a dinosaur uprising and like society fell, and so they had to like and so they do a little thing on my stuff. So yeah, I got $100 way back in the day for that article. Are we getting a Jamie Brienne chapter? Yes, of course. We'll probably get both characters. At some point. They're coming sometime, but they're probably one of the hardest to write because you've got to really focus on like the thematic elements of the story at that point, with like morality and code and like what George R. Martin believes. I joke about my Elon Musk poll, because like I put up a poll like what chapter do people want to see next, and I put a whole and like overwhelmingly people were like Jamie, and I was like, ah, fuck. Like I was like, damn it. And I was like, who knew that like Jamie is the one that like people overwhelmingly are looking forward to. I didn't think, man. Let's see. Thoughts on Reddit crisis. Is it smart business for the company or suicidal? I think it's suicidal. But the thing is, all of these like business models, is I think the problem is that all of these like higher execs and interested parties, whether it's shareholders or whatever, they want to have very high profits and increase in like upper echelon salaries, and they want their businesses to be more profitable than they are, because growth in general is, diminishing returns. It's logarithmic. You're gonna start out with high growth, and then over time you're gonna slow. But the problem is that like investors want growth. And so how do you keep growth going? Well, you got to do like these reorgs and changes and try to pull in more profit. It's never going to happen. At this point, is Reddit suddenly going to become more profitable? No. Like is Twitter going to suddenly become more profitable? No. Like none of these things are going to become more profitable. They've reached their peak usership. They're probably like diminishing usership. They're past their primes. And the way you pull in more profits is pull in more sales, to pull in more users, to pull in more advertisers. You can't do it. Reddit's at maximum attention span. Like everybody's already on there as much as they will ever be. You can't squeeze water from this stone. Same with Twitter. You're not going to squeeze water from this stone. It's done. Like these people are losing money. Like they're trying something. There's an old Chinese proverb that says like, we are fish out of the water, flopping to and fro. Like we don't know which way the river is, only that like something must be tried. And so like a fish is like, fuck, this is horrible. I guess I'm gonna flop. And sometimes he flops away from the river. Well, it's the same with these companies. Like, oh, we need to get to the river of profits. We need to get to the river of profits. Flop. CNN, like, viewership is down, profits are down. What can we do? I know. Let's try courting conservatives and having a Trump town hall. Flop. Like, no, like you're sorry, like you're dying. You're not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. Hey Preston, do you subscribe to the theory that Obama's Cairo speech ignited the Arab Spring? No, like no. Arab Spring was ignited in Tunisia, but I don't think it had anything to do with any sort of speech from Obama. You're talking like not to mention like even if he ignited it, like you've got like all of these like deep-seated problems that are like stewing for decades. It's like trying to find like some sort of like blame or something in a single person, and you're like, so many problems in the Middle East for so long that no, it's not gonna happen. But I'm trying to think like when did the Tunisia? I'm thinking even if like timeline wise, if it was like protesters in Tunisia January 14th. President's speech in Cairo. When does this happen? What's the date on this? I don't even know. I mean, keep in mind that like, yeah, situation. Like, keep in mind that like, people don't speak English. When Obama's on TV, it's not like people are like tuned in. I think what people forget is that like the rest of the world doesn't care about America as much as you think they do. Like they're really concerned with their own country. So Carmine, how was your birthday, dude?
Bro, it's been like a long time since my birthday. Stop.
It's been like 5 years since your birthday.
That's right. Still 29. Thank God.
George R. R. Martin was straight up lying when he said that Benjen wasn't Coldhands. Prove me wrong. I mean, I would say that like the description of Coldhands is that he has like old um like an old cloak. And so, like, how old would Benjen's cloak be? He's dressed in mottled blacks and grays. So his like cloak is already faded. And it's like, how long does it take a black cloak to fade? Um, and so I'd be like, it doesn't, you know, it's been like what, 1 year between like Benjen's disappearance and like when Bran runs into Coldhands, maybe a year and a half. It's just, I don't see wool fading that much in that environment, like in that quick of a time, you know. So he so that's just that's the way I'd see. He seems to be too old to be he seems too old to be Benjen to me. Just like his, you know. Kyle's father to bears. You should analyze One Piece. It has a void century long night. Oh, analyze One Piece. Ancient lost tech and a subterranean lunar society. And all the gods are people. Oh, when did One Piece come out?
97. I'm a huge fan. I would not recommend that to you.
Japanese manga.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's the one. It's the series that Hassan recently commented on by saying they're all radical, not socialists, but revolutionaries, because every country the crew goes to, they overthrow the current awful government and install a better one.
There's a Netflix series now, right?
Yes, it was just announced, ironically, yesterday, a live action series. It's probably gonna blow, but
I mean, it's funny that this is a conversation. So manga, so George R. Martin is pretty left wing, but I would say that most manga plots are also like incredibly left wing, right? Like they mainly deal with like overwhelmingly with like large rich corporate interests that need to be overthrown by like the people. Like that happens over and over and over again. um do you think the political aspects of manga like influence its readers, or do you think like the readers are just too like into like the cool flashy robots and shit?
cool flashy robots, because you've been to Japan and you know how the Japanese people are. Don't they have a saying where the nail that sticks out gets hammered down the hardest?
Yes.
Right. Like, no, it's just, it comes down to, I hate saying this because I love One Piece, but it comes down to, shouting out your fucking attack before you hit the bad guy. Cool, flashy robots and big titties chicks who may or may not be, underage. That's really what it's all like comes down to. I hate saying that because
and you'd say same for like Western audiences too. Like they're not absorbing the thematic message as much as they should.
I guess, but when it comes down to it, almost every piece of entertainment is left wing. Has any conservative ever made anything fun or funny? Like all comedians are like mostly liberal.
I mean, you're right. It's not that occasionally you don't have conservative art, and there are definitely conservative elements to a lot of stuff out there. But like when you're talking about like broad thematic message, like when I say like there's conservative elements, like it seems like on TV. Well, I mean, okay, I would say like crime procedurals are pretty conservative. Like any show, like all the shows that show cops as heroes, how there's never abortion portrayed, how like people live with so much wealth yet don't seem to be working. Like there's in most like comedy and crime procedural and like stuff like that, there is a portrayal of like status quo being like this great thing, and that you can totally be like the Friends on Friends or whatever. But like they're not going for an actual message. Like the message of Friends is trying to make you laugh. like the message of a crime procedural is trying to get you to watch to the end and be tintillated by like the whodunit. When you're actually talking like a story that has a thematic message, like the message of this is blank. Yeah, it's almost always liberal. You know, like it's very rare that like somebody goes into something with a conservative message. I mean, there's various books. I mean, I was Atlas Shrugged or something, but it's rare that like you get that. I guess people don't feel the need too often.
And I'm going to tell this to Mr. Kyle here and other people who always recommend you stuff, because I'm sure you get like a super chat that says read Berserk every other like stream. You get that. You got that last week. I'm going to say this to everybody right now. When in order for you to successfully recommend something to anybody, a friend, a family member, whatever the fuck, you should on some level know that person well enough to make sure they're gonna like it. Because getting on a show or a book or whatever is a time commitment. And this guy here has like 2 kids, a wife. You know, he's destabilizing southeastern nations. Like Preston's a busy guy. So like I love One Piece. I would never recommend it to you because that's a time commitment.
It's like down the list of like manga and stuff that you would recommend, like because I still haven't finished like Attack on Titan, which everybody says has like time travel that's interesting, similar to Ice and Fire.
Wait, did you start that?
I started Attack on Titan.
Oh,
and then I lost interest.
I didn't know that. How many episodes in? You have to give it the 3-episode try. But
no, it was more than 3 episodes. It was like
okay.
The walls fell and the it's still relatively near the beginning, but the walls fell and the giants are rampaging.
Okay.
There's been one time skip, I think.
So yes.
There might be more.
One time skip. No, you're right. One time skip. Yeah. Okay, I get what you are. He's on the Fall of Trost district, or yeah. By the way, you missed one super chat from Pain Causing Samurai.
Okay. Yeah, it's up here. Yeah. This one here. T-shirt ideas, bright colors, an inspirational, motivational style font that reads "Death is failure." We all fail in the end. Oh my gosh.
T-shirt idea. How by the way, how's your best-selling T-shirt of a fucking lemon on a white tee?
Well, you know, I think it sells. You know,
you gotta push that more, bro.
Lately, but like, you know, there's always like half a dozen every month or something.
You guys are fucking ridiculous. By the way, Preston's a fucking financial genius here for putting a lemon on a T-shirt.
Well, I'm also financial genius. I put like the profit margin on them as like $1. Like I put them as low as possible. That's why, like, you go to other people's channels and they're like T-shirt, it's like $30. It's because you want to take $16 for like mine is just like I feel bad here, just $1. Yeah. I mean, I should do some more T-shirts and stuff. But, you know, people love the merch. People love the merch. George R. R. Martin won Sean Bean before anything. Anyone for Game of Thrones. Why? Now read his name, Shawnee Bean. Now Google him, Preston. Don't say it's just a coincidence. Oh no. Okay.
Christy, what are you trying to imply? Because Alexander Shawnee Bean was a member of a Scottish clan that murdered and cannibalized over 1,000 people. Are you trying to imply that the Starks are cannibals? Like,
wow. Okay. How did you know that? Did you just do that?
Oh, I know. I fucking Googled it.
You're faster than me. Yeah, apparently George, like, before everything, he knew he wanted Sean Bean and he wanted Peter Dinklage. Like they were like the early castings. Like the whole show is like going to be based around them. Um, and then everybody else was replaceable. But
By
I
the way, people
suppose,
are saying Lord of the Rings is conservative. I guess. I
yeah,
guess. Eh.
or you could say Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe, or something like that, like or something like
Yeah.
um. But there is some talk about that. Like they also say like doesn't isn't it weird how like the best art comes out of like economic depressions and like times of like hardship and like the you know it's like the struggling artist needs to have something to say. Thing is, if you're living like in a conservative situation, like like what's your motive, like what's your motivation, like warning people that like society's gonna fall, like everything's great now but we gotta be careful, um I don't know. It's but no, I thought the the manga thing was interesting because like I think of other forms of art. So for instance, I grew up listening to punk rock, and maybe it's just because music like gets into people and is really piercing emotionally, but I know so many people that are like, oh, like punk rock really like opened my eyes to things politically speaking. um that then that they that I just I don't know if I see it in other situations. I know Star Trek fans um like say that like, oh, Star Trek opened me up to like thinking about different things. And I do think that some people reading Ice and Fire do too, but I haven't heard it with manga. It's not like well, after reading um, whatever uh, Lion Defender 45X, I decided that the corporate system was was bad, and that we needed to do more. You know.
It really depends on what manga you're reading, because One Piece is a shonen manga, which means it's about, these kids following their dreams. But ironically, that's what it was originally about in like the first couple of books. And then it evolves into like this massive overthrowing of the government and all this other crap, and it just becomes a whole thing. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it- it's honestly too long. It's a commitment.
Have you watched Beef? Is it? It's good, better than Barry season 4. Well, it doesn't take much to be better than Barry season 4. Um, I have not watched Beef, but recently my wife talked to one of her friends who did watch Beef. Like, now keep in mind, like my wife is Chinese American. Uh, Her friends from college are Chinese American, so like one of them felt obligated to watch Beef because the leads are both Asian American. And Beef is essentially like a vengeance story, right? Back and forth, dark comedy vengeance story. And she said she watched the whole thing, she got through it, but I think her review was by the end she hated both characters so much that it was hard to like know how to feel. Like you're just like, oh god, they're both so bad. Like so um I don't know, maybe I'll get around to it. But right now I'm watching American Born Chinese on Disney, which so I've read so American Born Chinese is based on this graphic novel of the same name. And I actually think the graphic novel isn't very good. Uh I don't think the art is is very good, and I kind of fundamentally disagree with the message of it. Um so this is oops, I'm sorry. I accidentally whew, I accidentally pressed a button I shouldn't have. So this is the art from like the graphic novel for like American Born Chinese. And it's like, it's stylized in a certain way, but I don't really necessarily think it's like that interesting.
It looks like newspaper comic art.
Yeah. Here's some more of it. And like, and it's yep, I lost my window. Sorry guys, hold on. Is this me? No. Where am I? Camera A? Am I camera A? Am I camera B? Where am I? No? Fucking A. I've lost my fucking camera. No? Damn it. God damn it. This is always the situation. How did I fucking lose myself? Fucking A. This is ridiculous. Oh. There we go, maybe. Let's get me back. Oh, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. God damn it. This is horrible. Fucking. Alright, let's try new overlays. New camera overlay. There we go. Fucking A. Okay. Anyway, I had this long discussion with my wife about it. Very, very sensitive discussion with my wife about it because it had to do with like race and essence and like what you are, and like, you know, American Born Chinese, the graphic novel, deals a lot with this Asian character that like is insecure about being Asian, and so he tries to act white, and then in the end he realizes that like it's they literally describe it as him like betraying, like giving up his soul, and so he has to like come to terms with the fact that he's like Chinese and like be Chinese at the end. And like I understand the insecurity and all the sort of stuff, and I sympathize with it, but at the same time, like I fundamentally disagree with the idea that your culture is your soul and that you're fundamentally anything. Like you like, you know, like I actually hate the term American born Chinese in general, because like it's this idea that like if you're in America and you're absorbing American culture, that you can but on your heart you're Chinese. Like, no, you're not. You're not Chinese. If you grew up in America, you're not Chinese. Like you're not like you're nothing like people in China. Like culture is absorbed around you. And so by saying like American Chinese, it's like saying there's like this weird like racial element, you know? Like Carmine, you talk about being Brazilian. And yes, like, you know,
I literally never talk about that, but okay.
I know, but you know, citizenship wise is one thing, but like you aren't really Brazilian. Like your mom's Brazilian, your dad's Brazilian, but like,
well, the problem with the difference between like the Chinese thing and Brazilian thing is that Brazil is basically like kind of like America. It's just they like soccer, and yeah, Brazil is like essentially like America just cranked up a little bit more. Like every problem that America has,
you're saying like Brazil is like more similar to America. Brazil is also, as they would say, like multiracial, multi-ethnic.
Yeah.
But like China is also multiracial and multi-ethnic. It's just that people have a weird concept with China. And this gets into like all sorts of issues of like Tibet and East Turkestan and like Taiwan. Like when they say Chinese, they don't really mean the nation state Chinese. They mean the ethnic group Han. And so there is something racial about saying like China. Because they'd be like, oh, well, when I said Chinese, I didn't really mean like some Turkish looking guy from East Turkestan. I didn't really mean like, you know, this mean I meant Chinese. I meant something racial. And so there's like something weird and racial about the term. And so when people are like, oh, at your fundamental level, like your soul is Chinese, you're saying like you ought to act a certain way because of your race. And like that, that never like sat with me like well, you know? Um, it's weird stuff. I mean, I don't want to get like way into it because this is like a long discussion about like culture and race and like my feelings on it. And it's like I, you know, anyway, long story short, the show American Born Chinese completely different and a much better nuanced like show, like much better. It's pretty good. I like it a lot. But the graphic novel, I just it was, you know, it wasn't for me. But um but yeah, I mean, I don't know, Carmine, you know, you know what I'm talking about with like what are we culturally? Like I don't know, like what we absorb from us around us, you know. Um like you grew up in New Jersey, so like you take on like the New Jersey culture.
Are you trying to say like I'm a thief? Because yes, I do steal things
No,
every now
no,
and
no.
then.
This is the
Oh
other
no,
this is
oh,
the other
okay.
weird thing about this question is people act like it's a choice. People act like your culture is your choice. Um, you don't. You largely don't get to choose it. Like you absorb your accents and like what you think is normal from like the community around you, from the kids at school on a subconscious level. Like you can't really affect it. You didn't like choose to take on your accent versus keeping a Brazilian accent your entire life. You
Actually,
didn't.
to be fair, I do choose to put on the New York accent every now and then. It's you know, to
but
blend in
like,
with the
but I'm talking,
Americans.
but you're not choosing to put on a Brazilian accent, you know.
I don't have one anymore.
Exactly, and it went
I'm
away
the
without
worst
your
person to have
choice.
this.
And
I
this
know
is,
I'm the worst person to have this convo with. I'm sorry.
I know, but it
You should bring your
it's these
wife in
funny.
here. Maybe she
Okay,
can
okay,
like shed some
another
light on
random
this.
story. Another random story. Um, so in Washington D.C., there's this newspaper called the Washington Express. It doesn't exist anymore. That you get on the subway, and there was an article that they had that showed this white couple that had adopted a baby from China, but they were trying to teach the baby about her culture. And they showed her dressed in like a Chinese qipao, and they're like, "Well, you know, we're trying to teach her about a culture." So we were like making dumplings with her the other day. This like 4-year-old girl, and it's like, I like had to write a letter to the editor that got like published. And I'm just like, this is ridiculous. Like, first of all, like you're two white people in America. You have complete inability to teach Chinese culture to someone. Like, but second, like culture isn't taught to people. Culture is absorbed like from around you subconsciously. Like there's no way. Like imagine if it were they had adopted a black kid and they felt the need to like dress the kid in like baggy pants and like a do-rag and like teach the kid how to cook collard greens. Like all of a sudden you'd be like, oh, that doesn't seem right. You know, like, but those are like undeniable like aspects to black culture, right? Like, you know, collard greens is a black dish like from the South, you know, but you'd never, but if you were like trying to like teach like cooking collard greens with your adopted black son, like two white people, everyone would be like, oh my god, that's just so like weird. Like, yeah, because like you can't teach culture to people. Like you can't choose your culture. Your just culture is just absorbed. It's from like what you do. And when people do choose it, it seems really like inauthentic and odd. You know, like the college kid that like tries too hard on his like outfit. Like he's a raver. You know, like you're like, oh god, just fucking wear a t-shirt and jeans like the rest of us, you know. Um so I don't know. It's just this odd thing. Like this guy, like, you know, like I don't think anybody should feel insecure and like, and but at the same time, like I don't think your soul is your like your the thing you're somehow born with this culture. That if you're like Chinese, you ought to like go out and try to learn use the chopsticks and drink bubble tea. Like it's just such a weird like racial, like you ought to like conform to your race kind of like ideas. It's just kind of weird. Anyway, bringing people back. My tinfoil theory is that it doesn't. I think Lady Stoneheart has Rob's warged soul. Not sure about Beric though. Huh. Um. That Rob is warging her body, and that she's like walking around as Rob. The problem is that Rob doesn't know anything about Brienne's like vow, or what she said to Jamie and things like that. I mean, if Rob's warged soul can somehow access the memories in her head, maybe. I always thought those like body swap episodes of whatever. There's always those sci-fi things where you swap bodies. The movie, vice versa, or the like Freaky Friday situations where like people's personalities are like swapped bodies. It's so silly because like memories exist in our brain, like so like if your essence like went over to somebody else, like shouldn't you have all the memories of the other person and them have all the memories of you? Because your brains were not swapped, like your souls were swapped. You can literally hit somebody on the head with a wrench and make them forget things. Like, so like, would Rob soul have the ability to access Lady Stoneheart's memories? But then at what point does it matter if it's Rob? It's I mean the whole idea is like doesn't make any sense, so it's like hard to analyze. Back from the dead with fungi, mind control spores. Yes. When season 2 coming out, Carmine? Did you do know? Last of Us season 2? He died. Carmine died. Oh well. Anime and manga has formed the core of my persona more than any other style of media. So, Ross says that manga he actually did. It did affect him. That the stories did affect him. So, that's interesting. So, I'm that's interesting to hear because, whether it's just like people, I mean, I guess it goes with most media. Like people are just like, oh, that's cool, and go, and they don't think about the deeper meanings. I've all told you that there's this horrible like Nazi like right wing Twitter commenter named Jack Posobiec, who used to be really into the Ice and Fire community. And he went by the handle Angry GOT Fan. He named his dog Sandor and all sorts of things, because it's his dog and stuff like that. And it's like he's super into Ice and Fire, but he like apparently missed every message from Ice and Fire. And like what George like was trying to communicate, but he just like he liked it anyway. I guess he just liked the battles and thought like all the fighting was cool or something. Hi Preston, did you watch the trailer for the 3 Body Problem? The new show by D&D based on the sci-fi novels looks decent. Has a Carl Sagan voiceover. This is so everybody's been wondering about like what happened to D&D. Because Dan and Dave like finished with Game of Thrones and they were like wrapping up Game of Thrones fast because they wanted to move on to other projects, and they had all these projects lined up and they all seemed to be either canceled or D&D would leave them for another project. And so eventually they settled like moving from Confederate to like the Star Wars sequels and things like this. They eventually jumped to 3 Body Problem, which was taking forever. And so the fact that like there is a 3 Body Problem trailer out is interesting. Let me I can't play the sound. I can't play it for you guys, or else I'll get striked. But oh, I have to admit, this looks really fucking good. Wow. I'm getting this. You're doing a React channel, but it's just like me and not the thing that you're watching. Um, okay. Well, whoever did this trailer, um, I am I am impressed by it. It's very well edited, very well directed scenes. It's looking like. I am, and plus I'm super curious on like what D&D are capable of, like post Game of Thrones, right? Um, so like that's um so I'm definitely interested in that. Ontological Chinese is like an oxymoron. I mean, really, when we break down any culture, it's very difficult to define what something is. And Chinese is just one of the most purely it's just so easy with Chinese because it's just like there's such contradictions. Like, because they'll sit around talking about like the 5,000 years of Chinese culture, and you're like, what do you mean by that? Like, and then they'll be like, well, the Han people originated. Oh, so you're defining Chinese as Han. So I guess Tibet and East Turkestan can go. No, because China is 1949. But I thought you said 5,000 years of history. Is it 1949 or is it 5,000 years of history? And you immediately get this like contradiction. But we see this with the United States as well. Like, we kind of learn this like 1776 kind of thing, creation myth. But then we all learn about the how important uh, Jamestown, Virginia, and the Mayflower are, and things like that, and stuff like that. Though at least we still do learn about the American Indians before that. But heading to Lebanon next month. Any Rex hanging out in Betron and Beirut? Beirut's all about like food and restaurants and partying and going out and seeing that. It's beautiful country. You can go hiking. I don't. I've been to Lebanon a couple times, but I've never been able to go out and about because working for the State Department, they don't let you. So like, but I think what was the um what was the pizza? They have this like Lebanese, as they say, like Lebanese pizza. I think it's called barber bar bar. There's this like flatbread like meat kind of pizza thing from some fast food place. I think it's called like barber or babar or something like that. I'm totally forgetting what the name of it. But Lebanese food is incredible because it's Syrian food is incredible. Get the halloumi cheese, that kind of thing. But you'll just have a great time wherever you are. You're staring at the ocean, so it's but I wish I had better recommendations, but I've never really like been, even though I've been there. I spent my time in refugee camps and government buildings, so I didn't actually get to see much of the country. um Since we're talking about Brotherhood with banners, do you think they're working for a secret pro Aegon campaign to prepare the Riverlands for invasion? Um, this was my original kind of belief about this, that when they talked about being king's men and everything, that king was Aegon. And that's there are a lot of huge parallels later on when they with the arrival of the Golden Company and like their foraging being similar to the Brotherhood without banners and stuff like this. I mean, now I think I perhaps made more of a connection than I thought there, because now I think thematically they really do represent like a group of people without any moral direction, and that being a very important thing. That the without banners being nihilist, almost like not knowing what they believe in, what their moral code is, being a very important thing. Like going into the Brienne story and everything. So I think I went a little far on the pro Aegon stuff. Now, do I think many of them are just like lined up to support Aegon? Yes, I do. Like I think that like many of them have backstories that might still lead them to Aegon. But I do kind of fundamentally think that thematically it was important that they didn't have any guide on where they were going. So I think I am probably like I probably don't really think that they're on a secret like conspiracy the whole time. That I think it's more important that they're directionless, that they're ships without a rudder, you know. So yeah, sorry, Riverlands Without a Dragon series. I've come to change a little bit, but I mean it would be really interesting, you know, with if we're talking about like Lonmouth being in there and being a squire of Rhaegar, and you know he would be easily convinced and stuff like that to go over. Again, searching for direction. Like these guys are just like easy. They're easy to scoop up.
By the way, did you got through the? I was not here. Did you get through the three body problem super chat that the person
Yeah,
put
no.
in?
Yeah, D&D. I
So
mean, the the I don't know if you watched the D&D trailer for their
I
new.
did.
Looks pretty fucking good. I mean,
I
granted,
know
trailers
very
are
much.
trailers.
Huh?
You know, trailers are trailers, but it looks pretty crazy.
A good chunk of the first book, it has like this VR game. The remember Miss Amber from Road to Tarvalon? We did a collab with her a while ago. She's actually been covering Three Body Problem. It's actually a phenomenal story. I personally like the second book, but I don't see. My problem is Netflix.
Yeah.
Netflix is where adaptations go to die and be mediocre. So,
Yeah, fair enough. You're saying Netflix is the thing that makes it look bad. It's kind of like Sci-Fi Channel. Like you're like, oh, this looks
yeah,
interesting. It's on the Sci-Fi Channel. You're like, oh.
that's literally perfect. Yes,
Yeah.
literally perfect.
Um. The um. To better Chinese social score plus 1500. Well, I mean, it's hard to deny that like they are that the Chinese government has control of that territory, and so they are part of the nation state of the People's Republic of China. You know, um, it's like after that, it's like what's your what's the argument? If you want to break down the simple argument that like they Tibetans are ethnically different than Han, therefore they're not part of China. That's a pretty bad argument, especially given to like Americans, so who are like, you know, a multiracial, a multi-ethnic nation state. Now, if you want to say like they should be independent because they're abused, I'd be on board with that. But like to say like they're Chinese, like whether they're culturally Chinese or not is a fairly irrelevant and impossible to answer question. Like what is Chinese? What is American? Um, you know, it's I used to live. I did my study abroad in college in Barcelona, And I love Barcelona, I do, but the Catalan independence movement was the worst independence movement I'd ever come across. I'm like, why exactly do you want to be independent? They're like, because we are a different culture. We speak a different language. You're like, and? Like, and? Like, oh, poor, like, it really had it was really, I'm sure some Spaniard will, or some Catalan will have a very different argument, but I'm just like, being part of Spain is so abusive. The Spanish government with their democracy and their tax subsidies for the Catalan region. Oh, poor 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 Barcelona. You're so oppressed. Like, um, but yeah, it's obviously, like, if people are abused by the system, I can understand independence, but on a cultural sense, I don't really care. Culture is not a very good excuse to me for independence. So because they do it in reverse with Taiwan. You're like, oh, you ask a Chinese person, like, why is Taiwan part of China? And they're like, well, Chinese people are there. And I'm like, but Chinese people are in Singapore. Um, Singapore is like 80% Chinese. Like, is Singapore part of China? And they're like, no, but I got everything falls apart. Um, Chinatown in New York is Chinese people. Is that part of China? There's a Game of
No, they're
Thrones
trying to make it
Croatian.
part of China.
What's that?
They're trying to make it part of China. So,
Yeah, sure.
by the way, before we move on from Three Body Problem on Netflix, do you want to cover that? It's up
Uh,
to you because I was kind of like
when does it
planning on
premiere? I'll
skipping it.
probably watch the first episode and then decide if I want to cover it.
Normally, I'd say give it 3 episodes, but I don't know. It should premiere 2024 January 2024. So 6-7 months.
Yeah, yeah. Is there a Game of Thrones themed Croatian restaurant in Taipei? Because there is one in Kaohsiung. Um, by the way, like Kaohsiung somehow gets transliterated and abbreviated to KH because Gao is written out cow and Shung is written out HS EIENG Kaohsiung. Um, I don't know of any Game of Thrones themed restaurants. I can't believe there's a Game of Thrones themed Croatian restaurant in Taipei. I guess because Dubrovnik, they film everything in Dubrovnik, or they used to. They're no longer filming stuff in Croatia, and they're moving everything to like Spain and Portugal. Um, so I don't know what happened. I mean, like, Croatia was like really made things like nice and easy for them. I don't know what it was. I think Ryan Condal really liked the grittier um, feel to Spain and Portugal. I think Dubrovnik's very clean and very sterile, and so I guess he wanted something a little more lived in and natural looking um, for King's Landing, but. Um, I think you can understand the themes of a story without agreeing with them. I've heard you talk about how you disagree with George politically before. I don't know how much I disagree. I mean, we're pretty close to George. George is probably like more to the left of me. He's a little more communist than me, but uh, I don't. I agree with the lion's share of like George's politics. Um, I think people, sure, you can like like my wife likes my wife is a huge fan of Ender's Game, and she doesn't agree with any of the politics of like what you know Orson Scott Card is trying to tell, and but she appreciates it. And the same when I'm talking about like the American born Chinese comic, like it's actually structured in a kind of clever way, and I can appreciate that. But generally speaking, people don't like to watch art that's not like politically aligned with them. Thus, all of the complaint channels about like everything being woke. Like, oh gosh, all the art I'm watching is left wing. Well, yeah, what are you gonna do? You know, um, but yeah, generally speaking, people don't like it. They don't like um, what was it in American Beauty? The one guy liked to go sit around watching John Wayne movies. You know, it kind of felt kind of weird. You know, like do you? I think people today, like you know, are having problems with Harry Potter because the artist's political takes, and it definitely affects and influences people. Um, what it's trying to say in the end. Does it does it make them does it make you feel creepy and stuff like that? Um, the Let's see. Hello, Ty HBD, and happy Father's Day. So, Mr. Government can't keep secrets. What's your take on all the recent UFO sightings and missions? Real secrets coming out or false flag distractions? Um, I don't think aliens have visited Earth, and I don't think the government thinks aliens have visited Earth, and I don't think that there's any conspiracy to like keep um, uh, keep it all like you know. I don't think it like anything like that is going on. I think that if there was some UFO sighted, I would think it would be like some spy aircraft that they're testing and somebody sees it and then they don't want to like release like that they're flying around a spy aircraft or something. Like I think it's probably like that, like like oh it was a military craft that were flying around or something, and then somebody spotted it, and like I think at most like that would be the situation. But no, I don't think any like in a pure sense of unidentified flying object, not alien. But I don't believe in I don't believe aliens have visited us, but at all, or the government thinks that. Um, Hello,
Joe,
Preston,
I've
and
tried.
all the streaming
I've
users.
tried Joe with the alien thing. He won't give it up. He won't give up the secrets. Even privately, I've asked him. He goes, "What? What aliens? Where? I don't see anything."
It's true. It's true. Source. Oh, Glitus. People probably want to know how you feel about the term Azorse, and if it affects like your opinions about like are any characters Azorse? Because a lot of characters are a horse, but are any characters Azorse? Stumbling on his words, UFOs confirmed. Are aliens religious or conservative? Uh that's funny things to aliens are woke. Um Funny thing to think about, like, if aliens came and if they had religion. Um we tend not to think about it too much. The aliens arrive and they have some crazy religion and are complete religious zealots. Um we always think of them the future being more scientific and people being like becoming atheists and stuff, and as time goes on. um oh, aliens definitely exist. I really doubt humans have ever in interaction with them. Oh yes, of course. I mean, the universe is infinite. The universe is infinitely large, and there's so many planets. Of course there's aliens, but like there's life out there. Of course there is, but just probability wise. But we don't know if I don't think any of it visited us. I've been thinking about how you watch one science video and then all of a sudden your feed is like filled with those science videos, and you watch one video on YouTube and you're just filled with it. um I watched some videos about like the expanding universe and what causes it, and the belief that there's gonna be a heat death to the universe and stuff like that. And I was thinking about the whole thing, um, and how scientists like are so sure when they tell us things about uh, um, like what's happening to the world, you know? Like for example, like you're going to hear that, okay, a scientist right now at this point tell us that, okay, the universe is expanding in inflation, and that it's actually expanding faster than the speed of light, and that the thing causing this expansion is dark energy. And the reason that it's dark energy is because some equations don't work out, so they have to invent dark energy to like make the equations work out. And then in the galaxies should all be spreading apart, but they've kept together. And the reason that they've kept together is because there's dark matter creating a little more like a little more mass, and keeping their spins correct, because the outside of galaxies spin faster than they should, and all sorts of stuff. And that's again because equations need to work out. But I was thinking about like light reaching us, and the reason they think they know the speed of the universe's expansion is because light has redshifted more than it should have as it's hit us. And so the explanation for why the light has redshifted so much is that the space is expanding. Of course, that's kind of another the equations don't work out explanation. Like, we don't know space to randomly expand, but we need to make that equation like work out. So we're going to invent like a fix, you know? Space is expanding. Maybe it is, probably it is, you know? But there's all these like, you realize it's just like a lot of like equation fixes that scientists go with. But, and you know, maybe they're right about all these things. Maybe they're right about space expanding and dark energy and dark matter. Maybe. But at the same time, it would be a real utter fucking coincidence that in the entire universe existing, we happen to live like really close to its beginning. You know, like the universe is supposed to reach its heat death at like, you know, 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 10 to the like, so on just like such a like unfathomably large amount of time. But yet we're right here at the beginning, like only 13.5 billion years. Like, that's a remarkable coincidence. It's also a remarkable coincidence that we are able to know how the universe will end in our lifetime. That like that they came up with this idea of hate death, like and accelerating like in our lifetime, you know, and they came up with like, you know, relativity and quantum mechanics and everything, you know, in the past century. So like, it's a remarkable coincidence in the life of the universe that we are able to know exactly how it's going to end, like right now. And that it's like also that our intelligence level is just at the level that we can comprehend it. Like monkeys cannot comprehend it. But really smart scientists are just at the point, like we got a few Einsteins out there that are able to like get to the point where they can comprehend like how the universe ends. Like of all the intelligence levels that should exist to understand like how the universe is going to end, we happen to be a race of people in our lifetime that gets it, that grasps it, which is just like, at some point you got to be like, no, like actually the universe is clearly more complicated than we could possibly understand. And that like, there's no way that like this exact intelligence level is going to grasp like what's going on and stuff like that. So it's all kind of ridiculous. But how did I get down this?
There's also another coincidence. Is that I don't know if you know this, but according to this alien leaker guy, he also said how there's a comprehensive and extensive disinformation campaign to disprove the existence of aliens. And I don't know, Preston, I've never heard of this job you have at the government. What is it again? Right. Auditing?
But this is the other the reason I got on this coincidence is that like the entire existence of the universe and aliens traveling around doing shit, that they would come to Earth in our lifetime. Like, that's a remarkable fucking coincidence, considering like the distances between stars and all these abilities, that it just so happens that you happen to be living at a time where like aliens hit Earth. It would just be like remarkable. And so like I see all of these things as like a little too remarkable. like understanding how the universe works, like, you know,
What if it's not aliens? It's drones. They're sending drones.
I don't think that, like, probability wise it would happen in our lifetime. Like, that's just like ridiculously slim amount of time. I mean, it's already a remarkable coincidence that we're all born humans, you know, which seems to be lucky compared to all the other things that we could have been born on this planet. So that's pretty nice, you know, like, thank goodness that we
Honestly, you know
born.
what's funny is I don't want to drag this like alien thing for too long. So I know you're like,
Yeah.
ugh. But it's funny. People want to like know the existence of aliens so badly they don't realize that if that actually came out, there'd be mass panic. I feel like everyone would have a crisis of faith and shit
Oh yeah,
because
absolutely.
it'd be so scary too. Like, god damn. Okay, well,
Yeah.
their capabilities, like, ugh.
Yeah, exactly. Um, it would be insane. But like, this is the reason why they claim that the government's keeping it secret. But no, it's just like, look at the sheer probability of it all. Like, just is so unlikely. It's why I kind of don't buy Heat Death of the Universe just on the probability. Like, we happen to exist at this point in time versus like like how much the universe is going to exist. Like, that's a remarkable coincidence. So yeah, I don't think that like aliens are here. Just I'm not like, it's not going to happen when we're here. Like, of all the billions of years for them to arrive. Um, any chance of Crusader Kings 2 GOT mod multiplayer stream? Well, yeah. So I've talked about this with Carmine because it's come up a bit, and they say that like, um, they say that while it's a fun game, there's a lot of boredom in between moves. That isn't that entertaining. That there's a lot of farming and shit and like random battles and stuff like that. So it might not be that exciting. I don't know. What do you think, Carmine?
I'm before I play it, I'm gonna wait for them to add like because it's missing a lot of the stuff that I love from Crusader Kings 2, the Game of Thrones mod. I'm gonna wait maybe a year or two before I sink my teeth into it.
I
But
think they
a
want
lot
us to
of
play Crusader Kings 2 already and wait for 3.
I mean, well, the funny thing is, people keep asking you to play all these games. Like you've gone over this ad nauseum, but maybe one more time.
Yeah.
Tell them why you can't get on a game.
Well, one, it's like I use a Mac, which and it's not the best for video game play. But and it's not like Let's Plays wouldn't be kind of cool, but also like, you know, I'm a very addictive personality and I get addicted to video games, and so it's also very difficult for me to do that. But you know, I'd have to find a video game that's like entertaining for you guys to watch, that I can like do on my platform, you know, on my platform of using a Mac, and so figuring out the the mechanics. Like, obviously other people have done it. Glidus has done it, you know, has done these streams, but
I feel like Glidus has more of a younger audience, and like younger people, for some reason, I never understood the whole Minecraft streamers. But watching someone play Minecraft for me is boring. But like the younger crowd seems to like really just like hook onto it and just
yeah.
like be entertained by like building shit.
Yeah, because
I
it's
don't know.
like
To me,
you and your bros chilling. I think it's like that aspect. It's like you and your bros chilling playing video games. You know, is that?
I think the reason Destiny gets away with it is because he's always playing video games, even when he was having his discussion with you, is because there's an active political discussion that, for
Yeah,
the most part, I don't think
he's
people
able
are
to do
watching him
two things at
play.
once. And then there's the
Right.
people that are like masters at a craft. Like, there are people that do like Mario Maker levels where you're just like, oh my god, how can that guy plays? I will never be that good at Mario, and he's like fucking mastering these crazy levels. And those can be entertaining too if you're like a master at video games, you know. So
I still can't believe you managed to play. I still can't believe you played Raid Shadow Legends, like unironically. I can't
thank
get over
God
that.
I got off that. Thank God I got off that.
I can't believe you.
Thank God. I defeated like all the levels there were at that time, and I was like, done, and then out. I'm sure there's many more now, but I was like, I did it. Out.
I wish I wish you told me that, because like I'm not gonna lie. Whenever I do my raid promos, I always like Google up or look up on YouTube people who already play the game, just like get footage from them, download their video, and put it in as though I'm fucking playing. I'll fully admit I'm a goddamn fraud. Like I'll fully admit, it. But I should have gotten footage from you.
Yeah. Look up fine structure constant, mind blown, our universe seed number, like Minecraft. And the thing is the real way I see the universe is sort of like for a lot of us, when we look at these physics stuff, and we talk to these physicists, and our minds glaze over because we can't understand like what they're talking about. We can't understand the math. And they're only a little bit more smart than we are, right? Like they're only like, they've dedicated more time and years, and maybe they're a little bit smarter, like on the IQ scale. But like, that's just a tiny bit more like intelligence to grasp like incredible complexity to the universe. It's very clear that the true complexity of the universe is going to be beyond what humans can possibly comprehend, if not as infinite as the universe itself is probably the complexities of things, and so it's just like, to be in a world where like somehow we understand how it's all going to end in our lifetime, is such a ridiculous concept. But and it's all based on very little stuff. Like it's all based on like and stuff that kind of contradicts, that you can't really explain to people, like went through this before, and I had a few physicists like posting like, like angrily, like, you don't understand this and this and this, Planck's constant, blah, 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 blah. Like fundamentally everything we know about the cosmos, right? Like a lot of it's based on red-shifted light, which is the frequency of light, right? How do you measure like wavelength in light? Well, you can't really measure wavelength. It's not really a length. It's metaphorically a wavelength. Okay, then what is it? Well, it's a frequency. Oh, so it's time. So now you're measuring things by time. You're using like time, like everything is like based on the speed of light, but this has a frequency, but photons don't even experience like time. And it's like, once you like try to get like the basics to it, like, what do you mean frequency? What is a frequency of light? Like, what is time? Time is already doesn't exist because it's taken from a rate of change, but change is a rate of distance. So how are we getting a distance for something with a frequency? Like once you really break it down, like they can't, like, I've never had a physicist like successfully explain this. They'll try, and I'm sure I'll get more posts about like explaining like what light wavelength and frequency is, but it's like, how can you have frequency without frequent, like time is constructed from a rate of change, like one thing, another thing, change. Okay, so how are you getting frequency of light? Because you're basing a lot on this frequency of light shit. Like you're basing like the heat death of the universe. You're probably right, you are, but it's like, like the red shifting, like all of these different, like, they'll tell you all about these, like, supernova and stuff going on in other galaxies and quasars and all this the Hubble, the Webb telescope discovered some galaxies that like exist like way before, hundreds of millions of years before they should exist. And it's like, well, how do you know that? Based on a redshift, which is really, again, like, you're just trying to make it's redshifted more than you think. Like your equations don't add up. So you like put in some stuff. Well, space is expanding, Oh, okay. At some point in the early universe, there was a kind of ether that cooled off and changed the properties of space time. Okay, right. It's all like weird. It's all like weird stuff based on itself that like yeah, they're probably right, but at the same time, there's like other complexity levels past that they'll never be able to grasp. And so I don't fundamentally like accept the conclusions. The anyway, it's not a coincidence if now in the universe is the only likely time new intelligent life will form. The anthrotropic principle. I mean, this all has to do with like rare earth and stuff like that. You have to like, you know, and again, this is like uh, if they're talking about like the age of galaxies and how long they've existed and like the a certain zone in the galaxy that's allowed that life is allowed to exist, and it's the only time intelligent life. But the problem is that like that's all based on intelligent life like our own. When there be infinite ways intelligent life could like come together. And so no, I don't even buy like rare earth hypothesis because it's like it's hung up in this like life like ours kind of situation, which so many things can happen in so many galaxies, and so that there be all sorts of crazy stuff out there that we can't explain. um
Do you get this question a lot from your friends and family because you work in government? Because I know I bother you with the alien shit. Does
yeah.
other people bother you with the alien shit?
No, my family is doesn't believe any of that. That's ridiculous.
Oh, I'm the only person you know that bothers you with the alien shit, like privately.
Yeah, no, they don't. My family, no, they don't believe in any of that like conspiracy alien stuff. No, that's ridiculous. It's because of God, of course. Oh, yeah. Um, we always create a sort of grand narrative as we crave security. It's funny that some of the grand narratives that we craft are like more horrific than it's weird that like more horrific than maybe the real world. Like this idea that say the universe is going to come to an end and all life is going to stop and that's going to be it. Like that's based on so little evidence, and yet it sounds like hell. Like everything we're doing is pointless. It's nihilistic. And it's like the concept of hell is a human concept. The concept of the heat death of the universe is this human concept. Like that it's all pointless. Oh God. Like human beings seem to be the creation of their own misery. Like there's nothing like so little evidence of any of this. So little evidence to be negative. There's so much like evidence to be positive about how like infinite and wonderful and ongoing everything is going to be, and yet people all focus that like everybody's focused on the hell you know um but yeah, everybody likes to simplify everything down, but then they simplify it down to like the most negative thing possible. um I have thousands of hours in Paradox games. Crusader King multiplayer is a drag. The game isn't turn-based but real time with pauses. It's still all waiting. Yeah, that's too bad. um Yeah, Glida says I've struggled with streaming Crusader King. It's not active enough to sustain an audience interest on its own, but it requires too much attention to sustain a conversation while playing. That's actually like the worst of both worlds, right? Because I'm amazed that when you watch um, the Mario people that are incredible, that they're able to have conversations while doing all of the fucking incredible stuff. That's it's pretty insane. Because they're that good at it. But yeah, I mean, with Crusader, you got to like start calculating what you're gonna do with your money and stuff like that. Um, I'm always shocked that Preston watches the same trash I do. Yeah, well, it's a lot of this like weird physics stuff. There's this she. what's her, what's her name? There's this German PhD woman that like constantly makes videos too, or like PBS Space Time. I'm like, oh god. Um. Uh. Um. I think I should only stream Crusader King with guests on, someone to jangle keys about. I think that's probably the best, and that's the thing about as well about the gaming is I wouldn't want to like stream Crusader King without like another guest there to talk to at the same time. But then like you're kind of you're kind of distracted. Um, um, Moon coincidences are creepy. Its origin is still debated. It helped life develop, and it's exactly where it should be to see full eclipses and how Einstein proved special relativity. It is true that like from what we can tell, our Earth is a little special in that we're not tidally locked. So most bodies in front of planets um, are tidally locked, which means like one side faces the star at all times. Our moon is tidally locked with us. We only see one side of it at all times. And if a planet is tidally locked, you know, one side's going to be, it's going to be a McDLT where one side is going to be hot, one side's going to be cool. And so where is life going to develop? Like, is it going to develop on that ring? But if it develops on the, like, so they think that maybe our Earth is not tidally locked because we happen to capture our moon, which is unusually large for our planet size. Like other moons are really tiny compared to their planet. And so, in fact, I think, is our moon bigger than all, maybe our moon on par with Europa, like in size? Like our moon is huge compared to like other, other moons, you know? And so like, it creates tides and it creates like it creates plate tectonics and all sorts of stuff. And so it's like really important that we have this moon because that creates the spin, which also creates like the electromagnetic field that like keeps out like radiation because the you know we spin and we've got this core and like so much happens that and then other people say, well, that's kind of actually like overstated. Like life could probably still exist without like the electromagnetic field and things like this. There's some people that go against these sorts of things, but nonetheless, it's like pretty incredible that we have this like just the moon, like it being almost a perfect size of the sun and all sorts of different stuff, and being the right size to produce all the things that it produces, like electromagnetic fields and stuff like that. So it is really fucking cool that we've got a moon, and it's really fucking cool that we spin, because you got to understand how important it is that we spin, because that means we have a light dark cycle, which means like animals sleep and wake, which means that like sleep is for memory preservation. And so like our entire existence of reality, like having memory, like might be linked to the fact that we have a light dark cycle and a spinning planet and all this kind of shit. Like it's beyond crazy. But who knows if like on a tidally locked planet on like the thin ring that life could exist with, like life could develop with memory, you know, anyway, so who knows. Time isn't real, smash the clocks. That's true. Um, would you rather own a yacht or a private jet? The yacht comes with a helicopter, a crew to man it. Forget the money, and this is hypothetical. I'd love a yacht. Fucking yachts? That'd be fucking great. Oh my god. Just like go to beach town to beach town. Um, that'd be great. That'd be great. I mean, besides, like, you know, I understand these are all money pits and stuff, but I would love a yacht, you know. Um, so a buddy of mine uh, had rented. You can do like timeshares on yachts, on boats, on like big boats, where you get like 1 week out of like 2 months. So like, and a bunch of people all like share it. So a buddy of mine had done that, and we'd gone to, um, you can then like park in front of Georgetown in DC and like just like chill out and have beers like along the boardwalk, which is like a bar restaurant area. And it's really weird because it's like there's other people that have brought their like big boats and yachts and have parked. And it's kind of another world because we're just like slumming it. But it's weird to like look over at the next boat and it's like some old fat rich dude with a bunch of like young stripper girls, you know, like it's just very weird, like different life. Like, what's this guy's life like? Like, he's got his like little boat. I mean, these aren't yachts; they're much smaller than yachts. But like, still, like, what's going on with this guy's life? Where he, you know, he's got his own big boat, and he like he knows a bunch of like young weird stripper girls, and wants to go to the Georgetown and have beers. It's kind of weird. Um. You're confusing multiple different topics. Light has a real wavelength. There are big error bars, but the model isn't contradicted by new findings. But how can you have a wavelength? Like, light is a photon, all right? And so, like, I understand that, like, the way I understood it is like it's a photon and it acts in a sort of quantum sense, that there's something that happens at one point and it changes, and then it acts that way again in a recurring frequency. And that recurring frequency can be charted in a wave, but it's not like literally a wave. And that there's not literally a wave length. There is a frequency, and that there's a length of time between quantum events that occur on the photon. But if you're still dealing with frequency, you're still talking about time in between like two events on like the photon. And even when we start talking about like photon, like from a photon's perspective, a photon is everywhere in the universe at once, and that the universe like is contracted down to nothing, like with a photon. So like all these weird things like exist, like when you're talking about like light and the speed of light and stuff that like doesn't really make sense when you start talking to people. Like, how can you have a wavelength? How can you have frequency? How can you have time? How can light, it's not like I haven't asked these questions before. And you usually get, it's a lot of like rumbling and math and theory and stuff like that, but there's it's not very good explanations, because it's not like the random person can explain general relativity very well. You can explain special relativity pretty well, but like, general relativity and time and all these sorts of things, like it doesn't make any sense. Like, if you're really in a ship going 9/10 the speed of light, shouldn't you get to that star pretty fast because space contracts? And they have all these explanations. Oh, well, the math something, once you sent the message back you would get there fast, but once you sent the message back, I can turn around on my ship and go back. Well, the turnaround creates something that makes it hard. Okay, I mean, all right. Like, is it 4 light years to? Well, if we had a ship that goes 4 light years, like it goes like 90% the speed of light, how long should it take me to get to Alpha Centauri 4 light years away? From Earth's perspective or from my own perspective, it's a completely different answer. I've heard lots of explanations and videos on it, and they're all messy. They're all really messy. I find it amazing how fancy autocomplete Chat GPT 3 can convincingly simulate our language. The incredible things that separate humans from animals. That's true. I studied a little bit of linguistics when I was in college, and the the thing that the people that's like, there's this movement where most of them are like, language is different from calls. Only humans have language and animals have calls. And they do this differentiation because they're like, language can be strung together in an infinite fashion, while like calls have a set meaning to everything. And this is largely overstated, that animals actually do kind of, especially bees and perhaps chimpanzees, do have language that can string together infinite ideas. But like, this is this concept of like language being infinite. And it is true. Sometimes I'm amazed that when you can take a very simple phrase from George R. Martin and Google it, and you'd think that like monkeys on a typewriter, someone would have written the same exact line, you know, and like you don't get it. Like I can invent something pretty simple. Like, how about, in the afternoon, he crested the hill. Okay. That seems like a pretty simple state. Like in the afternoon, very common, like prepositional phrase. He crested the hill. Like, crested, maybe not that great, but like not that common. But let's see how many no results. Like, no results. Like, no one on the history of the internet has ever written, in the afternoon he crested the hill. Like, isn't that insane? Like, that's a pretty simple sentence, right? In the afternoon he crested a hill. And yet no one in the history of the internet has ever written that sentence before. Like, it's amazing, right? And it's not even very like so that's the kind of thing, like you know, with so language is really infinite. Like, it's really large. It's pretty amazing that something so simple has never been done before. Well, because, you know, and if I made that longer, like, God. But the other thing with ChatGPT, that they can like go through and look at like past statements, and obviously it's just doing the same thing I am. I don't think I'm anything more than, you know, a complicated machine, like taking what people have written before and like popping it in. But it's interesting stuff. So we'll see what happens to it. But you know, in general, it's like not that creative. Like so far they're like, oh, it doesn't create new, it only knows what's existed before. But how is that different from anybody else? This issue came up in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Like, he was really the antagonist was really upset with Rocket because he was able to like innovate, and his other creations like weren't innovations. And you're like, how is that different from any other human being? Like, how that we're not innovators? Like, or like, how is that? You know, like, it's a big plot point that like, oh, Rocket is the first one to innovate, and everybody else is just, you know, basing things off of like rogue memorization. And it's like, well, are any of us really doing anything innovative, or are we just like shifting things slightly? Man.
Don't get too comfortable, because we have 2 more super chats of people wanting to continue this fucking discussion.
You're hating it.
Oh, I'm doing laundry, so do whatever.
Light is a particle and a wave in its duality. There is a literal probabilistic wave. I can explain general relativity, but I can't explain the twin paradox. Yeah, I mean, but even that, like, the wave is what I'm saying is that the wave is a metaphor. Like, yes, there's a duality of it being a particle and a wave, but it's more like But like when we talk about a wave, like we're really talking about like water being the example. We're really talking about like water, right? Like it coming out a distance from a line and coming back down, right? And so there is a distance to that wave that can be measured. And so when we have light, it's not like light itself is moving up and down in any sort of wave. The closest that we have is that like imagining like a photon uh like in a color, you know, which I guess light is that, right? And that say it shifts from red and then goes back to blue and then goes back to red, right? You know, making it more simple than it is. Like we can call that change, we can graph that as a wave. As it's doing something, it's shifting to some other behavior and then it's shifting back to another behavior. And so they talk about like the its ability to interfere with itself in a quantum sense as that wave aspect. But it's not like literally going up and down with physical length like an actual wave in the ocean or something. So like you hear them talking about light and wavelengths and you're like, what do you mean wavelength? Like what the length of what? Like, you know. But yeah, I can't explain general relativity gets really. So the difference between like special relativity and general relativity is special relativity is all the stuff dealing with going close to the speed of light, and general relativity has to do with the time bending aspect of gravity. And I understand that like general relativity includes special relativity, but like in a simple sense, that's what it is. When people talk about special versus general, special came first. And so like our GPS, everybody talks about how like, oh, relativity is proven correct because like our GPS needs to compensate for relativity. And it's true, but it has nothing to do with it. Well, it does have some to do with the speed of light, but it actually has to do with the gravity of the Earth. That it's the general relativity, gravity of the Earth bending time versus like the speed, because the speed would actually send it the other way. There's an actual point. There's a Lagrange point on Earth, like in orbit of Earth, where the general relativity of the gravity of Earth and the special relativity of the speed of light would cancel each other out. But nothing's no satellites are at that level. But why are we talking all this? Light has this physical wavelength. You can do classical experiments to calculate it. Quantum physics is confusing, but light is still a real wave. No, I mean like it's not going up. Like there's not a length. Like I understand it has a wave. It has a metaphorical wave that you can graph, but it doesn't have a physical wave. A photon isn't vibrating back and forth hitting things. Though there is like the fucking filter experiment, which no one can fucking explain to me the fucking filter experiment, because they also talk about like the filtering out light that goes this wavelength versus that wavelength. I don't understand how that works. I don't understand how the because they'll talk about the wavelength going horizontal versus vertical. So maybe I don't fucking know. Maybe. I mean, they talk about the filter experiment and the contradictory filter experiment where you have like a horizontal filter and then a vertical filter and then a horizontal filter and then somehow more light getting through as you add filters because of probability. Fucking bullshit. You know? Like it's just like it's stuff that like people can't like fundamentally explain. Like how could it even like have length? Okay. This is not correct. It's a literal wave. Then how can you determine length? Like how can you determine its length? That's not quite right. The wave is more like harmonics. You need to have the ends to say a string fixed for it to work. Yeah, I don't see. I just don't understand that. Because I've seen the explanation as well of physicists saying that it doesn't have like a literal wavelength. But then like the filter experiment happens. Like, well, how can you have length? Like, because people start talking about these things like, oh, when you get to the first few seconds of the Big Bang, and they start talking about the Planck's constant and things like this, like, and you're like, how are you measuring like length and space at that point? It's just, it's silly. Light is a physical wave. It does go up and down. So you're saying like the photon like goes up and down, but how can we even measure that length? You know. Yeah, wave does not mean you can see it like ocean. There's mathematical explanation. You're talking about subatomic particles. You cannot draw pictures. See, this is the thing, is I can't even get like how can you fundamentally explain something that's infinitely complex? This is exactly what I'm talking about. And so like it's like when people can't even like explain it to me, it's like, it's not like I don't understand like, you know, the like double slit refraction and dual nature and shit like that. Like telling me dual nature like doesn't do anything. I'm talking like physically, like how can it be a wave? How can you have length? How can you have a length to light? You know, because length can only be measured when you take one object and like compare it to it like where something is a second later. Anyway, who's got some death of the universe can cause by waiting for winds of winter? Yeah, it's true. What else has been going on these days? This is a quiet week. Carmine, you what's been in the news?
Well, so you see, light and is a wave, and it's I'm not gonna fucking get into. Yesterday was Netflix's whole live stream thing where they show off a bunch of trailers. You didn't. I'm assuming you didn't catch any of that.
Just the three body problem one apparently.
Honestly, are you even a Avatar: The Last Airbender fan?
I've watched the movie and I've seen like 2 episodes of the cartoon.
You've seen more than I have. Then I guess that's coming out. It escaped me as I was getting to high school. It came out and I had no interest. But that came out like nothing really insane. I mean, we did discuss a couple of stuff in the news on the recording podcast. I'm uploading it tomorrow. A couple of
Okay.
Do the usual.
What was the thing you sent me on George talking about the blacks and legacy?
I don't know. I sent that to you so you could watch it, so we can discuss it.
I can't.
Me. It's the reason I sent it to you is because on the podcast we discussed briefly how you said George basically says both sides are wrong, but in that clip he's clearly picking a side. I think that's what it was. It was a couple days ago.
I mean, both sides kind of suck, but like, the blacks definitely have like the more logical high ground. I wouldn't say the moral high ground, but the logical high ground, right? I remember George R. R. Martin posting about the three body problem, saying that he didn't really like it, which I thought it was funny. It's funny. George R. R. Martin usually praises almost everything people do. So,
Preston, do you know what the three body problem is about? Essentially,
I know it's Chinese sci-fi.
I'm assuming Amber is still asleep because she's in Germany. Essentially, I'm gonna butcher it. I know, like the basic like elements of it and everything like that. It's just, it didn't interest me that much, but the story interests me. But like going into it, it's just kind of a slog. Basically, we find out there's life out there, and but life out there, these aliens are a bit fuckery and tricky with their bullshit, and they're coming, and some humans take a side, some don't. I'm probably butchering it. People are gonna get on my case for it. Where it really starts to go into overdrive is the second book, where fuck, I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's really good. I wish Amber was here. She'd do a much better job at going into it.
Okay.
But I feel like this is up your alley, and I'm surprised George didn't like it because it seems up his alley too. Like the aliens do some fuckery to prevent scientists from preparing for their arrival, just in
Yeah,
case.
yeah.
Because like some people are like, these aliens are coming, we should probably prepare in case they're hostile. So the aliens send like these weird little things to fuck with scientists' brains and minds and prevent humanity from advancing scientifically, and it's a whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. Um yeah, the
It's so
I'm trying
weird
to
that George
I'm
didn't like it.
somebody posted about like George. Have you seen his long form interview where he just trashes California? See, so George, there's a lot of things about like George tries to come off as like this nice cutesy man, but like it's very clear from his writing that he has a very serious edge to him, where very dark, kind of bitter, angry, kind of guy, like the rest of us, you know. Um, so yeah, I mean, like, see, like, I had him where he was like trashing Chicago style pizza and stuff like that. Like, he definitely has this like, um, he definitely has like an angry, dark, like side to him, if not his entire side. Everybody else has these like, he people see him in these interviews where he's like trying very hard to be to come off a certain way, which all of us do. So I could see him just trashing California like all day long, for the sake of it. Not enough child nudity and rape for George and the three body problem. um, um, yeah. What's the story behind you meeting George? Chicago style pizza is horrible. That's ridiculous. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about.
Have we found something we disagree on? Oh, this is great. It's not even pizza. It's just like a casserole. It's not even pizza.
I mean, I don't think that makes it bad. I mean, even if you're going to like claim a definition argument, which I would think would have the strongest argument, but like it's delicious. Like, and when people trash it, it's usually they've never been to Chicago and they've never had it, because you can only get it in Chicago. Like, this isn't like
I've had Lou Malnati's shipped out to me. Like you can actually, I don't know if you know this, like fuck, I just did it like a couple months ago. Is it Gold Belly? I'm pretty sure it's Gold Belly. Yes, Gold Belly. Gold Belly will literally like, they will make it at the restaurant and like package it up and send it to you, and you can like heat it up and shit. I've had it. It's a fucking casserole. Is it bad? No. But it's like saying, well, have this raw fish with some rice on it. It's a burger. It's not. It's not. It's not a burger. Like,
I mean, Italians would say the same thing about American pizza, though. They'd be like, that's not pizza. Like, pizza is, this very thin kind of crust thing, that's very specific to like southern.
It's pizza
southern
soup. Hey, look, it's, to me, it's like a casserole. You put some cheese in there and like fucking can of tomato
when you say
sauce.
Casserole, like I'm expecting something like waterier and soupier. It's not, but it's insane because of the insane amount of grease. Well, I mean, whatever comes off the cheese. See, when you say grease, I'm thinking you had the wrong thing. So like, a lot of people will think Chicago style pizza is like thick crust, and it's not thick crust really. And they're like, oh, it's like cooked in a pie pan, like a Pizza Hut pizza, where the grease like stays in and boils. And it's like, nah, like it's best to think about it like a pie, like a dessert pie, but it filled with cheese, like a whole thing of cheese and then some sauce on the top. Like I say, like, like you have to get Giordano's. Like, yeah, it's grease, it's cheese. I mean, it's a lot of cheese. But when you say grease, it makes me think that you've had one of those like deep dish things. And it's like, nah, you might have been barking up the wrong tree. You might have been barking up the wrong tree. But like you just gotta go to Giordano's and like have a Giordano's. Like, you know. It's not, I don't know. I don't understand like how one can find it like bad. Like it's got all the same ingredients. Like it's bread, it's cheese, it's toppings. It fundamentally like is the same thing. Like you can't be like, oh well, that's gross. Like really, it's like I went to Taco Bell and I fucking loved their fucking soft tacos and I loved their hard tacos, but the fucking double decker taco, fuck that thing. Like what? Like what? The fucking it's the same fucking shit. Like it's just like been packaged in a different way. Like that's it. No, I'm sorry, man. It was just like I fucking I fucking love the fucking 7-layer burrito, but that fucking Crunchwrap Supreme, no way. Like what? Like it's honestly like Taco Bell. It's honestly the same shit. Like just origamied in a completely different fashion. Like that's all it is. You're eating the same item. Like Taco Bell offers the same fucking items like over and over again, right? It's just origami. Like you're getting a crane and then you're getting a fucking turtle. Like it's the same thing. You're eating the same fucking thing. Okay? That's the thing about like the pizza. Like, oh, it's horrible. Like it's fucking bread and cheese and sauce. Like go to fucking hell. Like how can you be like, I don't like this, but I like this? Like that's fucking stupid. It's fucking stupid. Like, it's ridiculous. Like I find it disingenuous. I find it really disingenuous. It's like someone could be like, oh, I fucking hate Chicago pizza. Like how? It's cheese, it tastes good. It's bread, it tastes good. It's sauce, it tastes good. It's some toppings that taste good. Like it's not different. It's not different in any way. I like sushi, but I don't like donburi. Like what? Like what is what the it's the fucking same thing. I'm glad we went down this fucking pizza route again. Do you have any travel hacks or must do's? I mean, generally speaking, I think that like, you like when traveling, you just you walk the city, you get a smell of it, you try the local food. It's hard to say like what you do in different places, but you try. I try to do a little bit of everything. You try to do a little art. You try to do a lot of food. You walk around. You try to go out at night. You try to do some nature. You try to do a museum. I don't think there's any like hack or secret. I just think just go to a different place um, and have adventures. I do think that like if you're young, traveling alone is more rewarding than traveling in a group. You meet more people when you're traveling alone. You are able to get around more and do more things. When you're traveling in a group, there's usually one person that doesn't want to fucking do something, or like, oh, one person's sick and they stay home. Oh, we've got to cut this short. I do think traveling alone is really important when you travel, especially if you're young, because you're gonna meet lots of people. And when I say young, I mean under the age of 35. I don't mean like if you're travel alone, meet people, you just find yourself like meeting other travelers who are traveling alone and like meeting up with groups and forcing yourself to like meet people. So Um, Chinese people would say the same thing about General Tso's chicken. General Tso's chicken is delicious, and I don't know any Chinese person that says General Tso's chicken is like bad tasting. Okay, you can't like fundamentally think that like General Tso's chicken is like not delicious. Like it's they Chinese people love fried chicken. They love like sweet things. It's sweet fried chicken. Like they would love that. They fucking love it. Like I've never met a Chinese person that didn't like General Tso's chicken. Now to say it's like not Chinese food, fine, definitional wise, but it's come on, come on. How can you not like it? It's ridiculous. That shite is Americana. I mean, a lot of shite is Americana. The But if Americans know how to do one thing, okay, there's a lot of things wrong with America. Okay, a lot of things wrong with America. But if Americans know how to do one thing, it's make food taste really fucking good. Like, and we do it by we like, let's take Indian food and add a bunch of fat and butter to it. Let's take pizza and like add more cheese and more sauce to it. Let's take Chinese food and deep fry it. Like, like I hate the South, but it's not like I'm not going to be like Southern food doesn't taste fucking good. Of course it fucking tastes good. It's fucking salt and
You
fat.
don't hate the South. Stop saying that. Nothing wrong with the South. Couple things
I don't know, man.
South,
Have you spent time in Texas?
It's funny. I actually met this one guy, John Boy. Shout out to him. He's from Wyoming, and he was telling me how, despite being from Wyoming, his family was very liberal. His mom would scold him because she was telling him about something, and he goes, "Mom, that's so gay." And he said it in a way like gay meant lame or whatever. And she goes, "Don't say that. Don't do that." And I was like I was like taken aback, like, whoa, in Wyoming? God damn. Okay. So it's not everybody in the South, All the cool places in the South are usually liberal.
I mean, even in the most conservative places, like vote 40% liberal, and even in the most liberal places in America, vote 40%, conservative. So I mean,
by the way,
yeah.
I have to ask you about this because I haven't. I gotta take you to task on this. I have to because because I don't know if YouTube's been listening in on me, but I think you mentioned Destiny one time, and all of a sudden I've been getting like Destiny's clips coming in on my recommendation, and I saw his. Did you watch his debate with Cenk Uygur from Young Turks?
Yeah.
And it reminded me because you were on Destiny's stream. By the way, for the people who don't know or remember, Preston had a conversation with streamer Destiny. It's on his channel. Check it out. Did you ask him about his Kyle Rittenhouse take? Because I know you fundamentally disagree with him on his Rittenhouse take.
I do. We didn't talk about the Rittenhouse take, but
Why?
I do fundamentally disagree with his take on the Rittenhouse. I do. I think he misses the point, but
well, something I've learned because I've been on a Destiny. I as much as I dislike the dude because he's so fucking petty, he's one of those guys where he's hyper logical and factual. I was listening to his him going over the H3H3 versus Pearly things debate, and he's just flipping out because he hates how Pearl talks. She talks with like emotion. I just think that women shouldn't vote or should vote in line with their husbands. I just think, and he hates the whole, she's coming from emotion, but no, like, how come you didn't talk to him about the Rittenhouse take? Because he's hyper logical on it, and you and I come at it.
It just didn't come up. Like, we talked about Game of Thrones, and then I don't know, we just got in kind of random conversations. Like it was just like shooting the shit with him for like 3 hours. I didn't have I didn't even think I was going to talk about like politics with him or like the random things we talked about. It just didn't come up, I don't know if I would have been prepared to talk about it because he's researched it more than me. But I think when I say he's missed the point is I think he's completely in the weeds about like at that moment, is it self-defense? And it's like, yeah, but he shouldn't have like gotten on a bus with an AR-15 and like put himself in that situation in the first place, looking for trouble. And so like that's my
Right.
problem with Kyle Rittenhouse is like not the heat of the moment stuff, all of the stuff leading up to it that he like thought out was the mistake. Um, this gets in, it gets into a lot of different things about like um, the human brain. Um, the human brain like is compartmentalized. We kind of understand that like we understand like that we can be a bad actor later and that there's multiple parts of ourself. We like if you want to wake up early, you'll put your alarm clock on the other side of the room because you understand that like while I want to wake up early, I know that like morning me may not like actually wake up. And so I need to force myself to wake up and go to the other side of the room to like hit the snooze or turn it off. That'll help me get up, right? This is the whole thing about tattoos. Like, I tattooed myself so I wouldn't forget. Oh, because you think that you're capable of forgetting. Even marriage in itself is this like exercise in self-command where you're like getting into a situation that's very hard to get out because you don't want to get out. You're controlling your future self. So like Kyle Rittenhouse's like fundamental problem is that we can talk about these like heat of the moment things, but like his fundamental problem is that like from the beginning through like long conscious thought, he thought it was a good idea to get a semi-automatic rifle and like go to a different state and at night and try to protect somebody's like car dealership and like be a freaking target. Like that's my big
You
problem
know
with Kyle.
Destiny's argument on this, right? Like how he's very logical in the sense where you and I are coming at it from like,
I mean,
look,
no,
you're gonna
his
go
argument is
somewhere.
like if you look at it, it's self-defense. People were attacking him, and it's like
Sure, but you and I are coming at it
that's
from like
fundamentally
you
his
went there
argument.
looking for trouble, you're gonna find it. That's
Yeah,
how you and I
exactly.
look
If
at
you're
it.
looking for trouble, you're gonna
Right.
find it. You know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can do the same thing. Like I can pull uh, Die Hard 3. Okay, all right. I can pull a Die Hard 3 where we all know the scene I'm talking about with Bruce Willis, like and the billboard.
Remind me, I've seen the original. Wait. Oh, the one where he's in Brooklyn or
Mm-hmm.
Harlem. And
Right. Okay.
actually, I have a better analogy here for me from someone in the comments.
Now
Forbiz says,
he had a gun on his billboard there, and
right.
had Bruce Willis like killed one of those people who were attacking him, um, that would be self defense, right? You know?
Uh, this is I think this is a better analogy here from Forbiz. If you jump into a bear pen at the zoo and shoot the bear in defense, you're definitely committed a
Right.
premeditated.
That this is exactly.
You're also shooting the bear in self-defense. It's also true.
Like what do you think? Like you're going to look, and that's why I think he like messed up. But um, nobody watched Die Hard 3. Nobody. But yeah. Um, um, I agree with you. People that look for trouble kind of end up like Julian Assange. Julian Assange. Um, I mean, he was also like, I mean, he had some he had some what statutory rape, is that what they were trying to get him on or something? He had some weird stuff in his life, like some bad stuff in his personal life. But also he definitely had like Julian Assange definitely had like the problem with him is he wasn't motivated by ideology. He was a petty dude. And like he did a bunch of shit that like for his own ego. Um and he started helping parties that were not the greatest parties based on his own like his own pettiness of like who he didn't like. So like I don't think he was any sort of like wonderful murder. I think you're gonna find better ones with like who's the guy that went to Russia, had the movie about him.
Snowden.
Snowden is probably a better like moral case than Assange. Um, so but
But even with Snowden, you also have like bullshit with that too. Like not from Snowden himself, but from what was the guy's name? Glenn wow, forgetting the man's name. He's in Brazil. Is it Glenn Greenwald? I want to say it's Glenn Greenwald. Yes, like Glenn Greenwald has gone down that whole right wing like insanity thing that Julian Assange is going down, because Julian Assange, if anything, was trying to help the Republicans during the whole Hillary Clinton thing. So yeah, he was on some bullshit.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's tough when the guy's like political, and he's trying to like claim he has some sort of like weird moral like high ground or something, So it's just kind of weird with him. I don't, he's like really good friends with Pamela Anderson for some reason.
Yeah, Julian Assange. Yeah, that's so
Yeah,
weird.
it's
That's so random.
Weird, fucking weird craziness, Um, yeah. This is the other thing. Like, a former CIA asset accused him of statutory rape. Fact. This is the thing about like throwing in the CIA, and this is the same thing about like making equations fit. Right? It's like fucking dark matter. Right? Your equations don't fit, so you're gonna throw in fucking CIA did this. Well, that's great and theoretical. Like, okay. Like, or he could just be a shitty dude. Like, or he could be a shitty dude. Like, it's, it's like this unprovable thing that you like throw in to like make your equations fit, to make your narrative fit. Like, throw in the CIA. Okay. Some sort of unprovable nebulous thing.
By the way, I love how the audience, I feel like the audience doesn't understand who you are at this point. You guys can't throw like those type of conspiracies at Preston, because he'll shoot him down. When it comes to government, like, he's no nonsense about that. Like, if you throw the CIA or FBI in there, he's gonna shoot it down. Aliens, pff, weather balloon. CIA, pff, guy's just an asshole. Preston's gonna shoot it down.
Yeah.
He's anti-theory when it comes to the government, but he's super pro-theory when it comes to acid fire.
Right. Well, the big fundamental difference is that like that like a story only takes one person to come up with, versus like a conspiracy in real life actually takes like the coordination of hundreds of people that need to do something, and then it's like and for not to come out in a leak, when like there's financial interest for people for it to come out in a leak, there's media sources that are like dying for these stories, and they're willing to pay for these stories. You get all, and yet, it never comes out, so.
I should
I'm
probably
also
stop
big
adding
into
to this.
economics. That's the thing, is like I'm looking for like what's the financial incentive and like
Right.
where things naturally go.
But you're also realistic in the sense where, because you work for government, you see how much of a dumbass everyone in government is and how incompetent they can be. So you're like thinking, no way the government is this competent on a master level. Like, I get it. Like, you're coming from that point. Because I'm being an asshole. I'm making it sound like you're being a super spook, but you're not.
Yeah. I mean, keep in mind that like newspapers are dying for some sort of fucking headline, so much so that they're forced to like post, blah blah broke the internet on Twitter as like headlines, and you're like, oh my god, like, you really slow news day. Like, they would love to have like wonderful stories all day long about these sorts of things, and yet like, what do they ever come out? Do they ever come out in any reputable news source? No, never do. They never do. And it's not like reputable news sources don't post like print crap, because they do. And so it's like this couldn't even make like the D-list stories at like like a reputable news story, a reputable news source. So the creation of the bomb was kept from a secret from everyone for years. I mean, I think people at Hiroshima kind of knew that the bomb was created. Um, um, but let's see. The Manhattan Project started in 1942. The bomb is dropped in 45. So, the government was able to keep something a secret back when it was much easier to keep secrets for 2.5 years. And in fact, it wasn't that much of a secret. I think there was, obviously the Russians got the intelligence and did their own fucking Manhattan Project and produced their own bomb only a few years later. And I think the Germans had their own Manhattan Project that didn't get to the point of completion, but they were working on it. So in a sense, it wasn't like that much of a secret, Firebombs did more damage than atomic bomb. That's kind of true. Firebombing, the people talk about like Dresden as the prime example of that. But yeah, firebombs were just as effective. I think it was something about the shock and awe aspect of the atomic bomb. But yeah, firebombing is essentially when you bomb a circle around a city, and then the oxygen structure of like fire spread like sucks inward and like incinerates a city very quickly. So it's pretty brutal, horrible way of taking out a city. And so a lot of people wonder, like, was the firebombing of Dresden necessary? What did it achieve? And I might agree that, like, I don't think Dresden. I don't think anyone needed to firebomb Dresden. What about the nude bomb? Is that from Get Smart? The nude bomb. Oh well. All right, Carmine. Any last thing? I think I'm gonna answer a couple more questions and then out of here. Been on for
Uh,
3 hours 20.
I don't. Oh, before I forget, I'm sure some people are curious to know. Did anything come of the Ironborn shanties thing? Do you have anything on that?
Far
Any
too
update?
much. I think I might do a special stream. Just because reading through them would take forever. I think it might be more fun if, like, I read through it with a with some people. I've got some songs from Glidus himself. Um,
Hmm.
some other people have brought in actual music. But yeah, it's like 75 like different poems that I need to read. It's like way too many. Way too many.
Did anyone? Well, in hindsight, we probably should have done this. Did anyone like send any submissions of them singing it?
Yes. You have a
Okay,
few.
good.
That's what I'm talking
Because
about. Yeah. So I actually have like some actual like musical renditions of people singing. So it's kind of cool.
also, be sure to like just random. Be sure to add some like books that some maesters in the past may have written that clearly aren't in the Georgia story that you've just invented for the wins.
Yeah. We put one in the last store in the Bravo chapter, but like, yeah, we can definitely have more. Um, but yeah, it's gonna be a lot of that.
Are you also gonna put
Um,
like events, like random events, like just made up events that happen like in the Vale or the Riverlands, like just random shit, made up events in the past?
yeah, that's true. They do say it's kind of funny how fiction works like that, where it's kind of um, it's tough to like build more things. I do think there should be more battles in Robert's Rebellion, and stuff like that should be added. Um, so you're right that kind of stuff does need to be kind of like thought about and added.
How
Um,
many battles are in Robert's Rebellion now? Like the first three. that Robert partakes in. He wins 3 battles in a single day, and
Yeah,
then he
and
gets
then Stony
routed.
Sept, and then well, he fights some battles up in the Vale. Then he fights some battles once he comes down to the Stormlands, and then there's the Battle of the Bells, and then
What about the battle where he gets routed by the Tyrell army?
um, oh yeah, right before the Battle of the Bells, there's like one where it's like somewhat a success with Randall Tarley. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, where he has to retreat. Yeah, so there's the 3 in 1 day, the kind of routing, then the Battle of the Bells, and then there's just this like nothing for 7 months, 8 months, and then the Trident. So like there's this huge like hole in the war, which is just silly, and it's silly because like it's how Jamie describes the war. So it's like he's telling the tale of the war, and he just like you know like goes over it, you know. It's like Jamie is like talking about Black history, you know. He's like, there was slavery, and then sometime a little bit later, there was Martin Luther King. You're like, oh really? Oh really?
I'm also talking about like legends, like I don't know, like in the Stormlands, let's say there's a legend of a giant turtle with an island on top of its shell, something stupid like that, like the Estermont's push or something, like the legend of the walking seashell in Dorne or something, like
Yeah,
just
yeah.
are you gonna bring that into it too, like just random legends from
Yeah, I
certain
think
areas?
so. I think so. I think as much as possible, make it as rich as possible, you know. So, yeah. Preston, how much political theory have you read? I've read some, but I don't think it's actually important. Um, I think political theory is largely useless because that's not the world we live in. Um, we're never in your lifetime. You're not going to be in a situation where you're going to be pushing any political theory you have. Um, the only politics that is going to exist in your lifetime is the mixed capitalist socialist like structure of Western nations, which you know is like you're talking about the degrees of social programs, and the marginal changes to tax rates and social programs. And I think if like you have a political theory that goes like anything beyond like what can be achieved through like actual politics today, it's useless. Like it's just you're excluding yourself from real political discussions of actual policy that works on the ground. Um, it's like um, I would say like it's the equivalent of like being married and reading theory books on like what it would be like to be married to a supermodel. You're like, that's fucking great, but why are you talking about being married to a supermodel when you're married to your like regular spouse? Like, or like reading a book on like what it would be like to be married to an alien. Well, that doesn't like affect you. Like you're married to a real human being. And so this is the thing, like how I feel about political theory. Like you can talk about political theory all day. It's useless. It's fucking useless because that's not the world we live in. We live in a world where politics gets shifted a little bit this way or that way. There's certain specific policies that can have effect on people's lives and the world. And like you can vote for those policies and push those policies and support charity. You can support political candidates and donate to those things. But like, if you're going beyond that, it's fucking pointless. It's like, just stop. Like, stop reading up on Marx. Stop reading up on anarchy. Like, none of these things are going to happen. Okay. Like, stay grounded in the real world. Like, versus like, well, if I'm, maybe if I have telepathy, it might help my marriage. No, like fucking stay fucking grounded. Stay fucking grounded. All of it's useless. And it in a sense, it's like, I would say worse than useless because it takes people out of like the real voting. Like I meet people that are like, well, I'm a blank and neither of the political parties like, supports my interests. And it's like, no, they do. You just don't know. like what policies do. Like all of their policies affect you. It's worse than useless because it takes your attention and time and takes you out of the actual political conversation. To be, to be talking about that sort of stuff. Will Lady Stoneheart kill Littlefinger before dying? I don't think so. I don't think her like her relationship with Littlefinger is very important. I think Littlefinger and Sansa is the main thing. Not to mention, like, Littlefinger's concept of cat is his imagined concept of cat. And so I don't think he needs to meet an undead version of something, because it's kind of fake anyway in his head. So I don't know if it's if it's necessary that Stoneheart needs to kill Littlefinger. I think Littlefinger's fate is should be connected more to Sansa and Sweet Robin myself. But anyway, thank you everybody for staying with me this long. I will talk to you guys soon. I'll see you guys later.